This is Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney.
Why are we upset if we're creating jobs?
Inflation's still a thing out there for the everyday consumer.
With Lisa Mateo on markets.
The economic calendar jam-packed today.
And Michael Barr with news.
Tensions between the U.S. and China have heated up even more.
The best in economics, finance, investment, and international relations. This is Bloomberg Surveillance on Bloomberg Radio.
Good morning, everyone. Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney, Bloomberg Surveillance. Sweeney on the beach. Joining us this morning, Damian Sassower, just in before tea time. What's it? Do you go directly from radio to the golf course?
Yeah, today I'm going to go directly.
Are you polite about it? Grab a breakfast first off.
No, I don't think so. I'm just going to go straight to the range. I'm going to loosen up. I'm going to get warm, and I'm going to think about a vision of Paul Sweeney on a beach somewhere.
We got lots to talk about today. Damian Sassower with us, and this is particularly useful when you see Euro Yen go through a 170. For those of you in the Sassower racket, it is a weekend of tension. Let me get right to it, Damian, before we get to Lisa and launch here on a really good 3 hours of broadcast. And the basic idea for me, Damian, is EM. There's a tension there with dollar. Is it a stressful Memorial Day weekend for EM, or are they doing fine?
I think we're doing just fine here. I mean, the VIX is back below 13, Tom. I mean, let's put it this way. You have a flatter yield curve here in the U.S., and as we know, all emerging markets follow the Fed, but 16 of 18 emerging markets are actually steeper. The curves are steeper this year, so that tells you that term premium is expanding. You can make some money in emerging markets if you have the you-know-what's to go there.
Do the nations have stability now? If I see Philippine peso through 57, through 58, is that good for the people of, say, the Philippines or Indonesia, whichever one you're talking about?
I think it depends. I mean, the Philippines, I like to use the word idiosyncratic. I'm going to use it here, Tom.
Really?
Idiosyncratic carry. How do you find and how do you isolate, identify, and invest in idiosyncratic carry? Carry that is not related in any way, shape, or form to what's going on here in the U.S. You have to look to emerging markets for that, and you have to go out along the curve.
Damian Sassower with us here. We'll do some EM chit-chat. We got some coming up, actually, in moments as well. We're on Apple CarPlay. We're on YouTube. Search Bloomberg Podcasts. Subscribe to Bloomberg Podcasts to get all the imagery you can of Damian Sassower. And there's live chat on YouTube. Lisa Mateo out on live chat. Damian Sassower's not. We'll work on that. Our technical interns will see if they can make that happen here. A Bloomberg Business Flash from the Interactive Broker Studio. There's Lisa Mateo.
You got it. And we have futures advancing after a Thursday sell-off. This is despite a more than 9% surge in NVIDIA. NVIDIA shares are up about 0.5% right now. The wealth of its co-founder, Jensen Huang, is now greater than each individual member of the Waltons, America's richest family. We have the NASDAQ futures up 0.3%, Dow futures up 0.1%, S&P futures up 0.2%. Traders pushing back expectations of interest rate cuts by the Fed to later in 2024, and that's following some strong U.S. economic data. Atlanta Fed President Raphael Bostic, he said the central bank needs to be patient on its next move because there is still upward pressure on prices. Today, the Fed's Christopher Waller speaks. Over to the bond market, the 2-year yield 4.92%. That's down a basis point. The 10-year yield at 4.47%, and that is little changed. Companies making news. Sources saying Alphabet and Meta platforms. They've been talking to the major film studios about licensing content for use with artificial intelligence video generation software. We have Alphabet and Meta. They're both up about 0.5%. And meanwhile, Meta working on a paid version of its AI assistant. That's according to the information. And finally, sources saying Elon Musk SpaceX planning to sell shares at a valuation of about $200 billion. That is your Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Damian.
Lisa, thanks so much. We start strong. Anika Gupta is with Wisdom Tree with prodigious math capabilities. We're going to talk to her about commodities and the correlations that are out there. Anika, when you look at all that's going on in equities, bonds, currencies, commodities with your math skills, is it a correlated and stable market right now? Or as a general statement, are you concerned about instabilities?
A very good morning, Tom. No, I don't think, we're seeing a lot of stability across assets. It is quite a bifurcated market. Even within the asset classes, we're seeing, sharp responses to this interest rate calibration that is taking place within global financial markets. We opened the year with this euphoria of interest rate cuts as high as 7, and now it's boiling down to just about 2 interest rate cuts by the Fed. So we are seeing quite a bit of change take place across asset classes in response to this recalibration of interest rates.
What I find fascinating here is everything Damian Sassower owns is up. Copper's up, wheat's up, this is up, that's up. Is it up because there's a bet, Anika Gupta, of a recovering China?
Well, in part, yes, there has been better data coming out of China, but again, there's a bifurcation. Areas within the property and real estate market continue to remain quite weak. However, demand within, the electric vehicle space, any sort of demand within the energy transition that China wants to be a leader in, is showing some strong impetus, and that has been clearly, being portrayed within the commodity market. So, be it across metals, we're really seeing within the commodities, it has been the year of the metals, where not only industrial metals, but also precious metals have been doing really well, while we're seeing energy lag behind alongside agricultural commodities.
So, Anika, I'd love to hit you back on industrial metals. I think we're up 16% year to date based on, copper's just ripped it. But I need to go back to what you said about stability, that you're seeing a lack of stability. And I look at a VIX here below 13, and I look at, investors, they just don't want to get engaged with me on discussions revolving hedging and options and locking in some of these gains. Do you feel the same way? What are you hearing from clients?
Well, essentially, clients are a bit nervous because obviously markets are at all-time high. Equity markets are at all-time highs. Also within, commodities, we've seen metals, as you rightly mentioned, they're up about 16%. We've already seen a short squeeze in copper. I think they're essentially, obviously, this is a tricky month. We're well versed with the famous acronym sell in May and go away. But nobody wants to sell. They want to stay invested. But they don't want to increase their positions. That's what we're essentially hearing.
So would you advocate, using synthetics, call writing, put protection? With all at these levels, why aren't we seeing more people use, derivatives to lock in their gains or at least hedge the downside?
I think, the premiums are quite high. If you're looking at, option premiums right now, some of them are trending a bit higher in the market. And I think that's putting a lot of investors on tender hooks. And I think with volatility remaining quite subdued, investors expected to rebound. And, we just need an unknown event like a geopolitical risk that's very hard to price in. And then we'll see that spike, manifest. And that'll obviously cause a bit more nervousness amongst investors.
So you did mention commodities, so let's go there. Bloomberg Commodity Index up 6.7% year to date. Obviously, precious metals up 14.3%. Gold up 11%. Anika, talk to us about how an investor in today's day and age can take advantage of what's going on in the commodity complex. I look at the materials subsector within the S&P. It's only up 6%. How can investors take advantage of what we're seeing there?
Well, I think gold is particularly interesting. We've seen some well-known long-term correlations completely break this year, be it gold with respect to real interest rates that has broken, gold in lockstep with ETF buying, completely broken. ETF buying in gold linked commodities has been really lackluster. And despite that, gold has powered ahead. Gold versus the dollar still remains quite strong. Gold has still, outperformed irrespective of the dollar strength. So I think...
No, yeah. Go ahead. Please, Anika, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just thinking, Tom, just positioning and increasing your allocation towards gold would be quite prudent, given the fact that, it's a very good hedge. History has shown us that gold has been a very good hedge against geopolitical risks. And that seems to be an area of concern amongst clients that we are speaking to today. And that's one area that we have seen investors really increase their allocation towards gold too.
Anika, thank you so much. Anika Gupta with us with Wisdom Tree. Greatly appreciated this morning. What a great way to get started, because I think the correlations and the stabilities in the market are it's the untold story right now.
Yeah, and it's seasonal summer. It's 80 degrees in New York. People aren't coming in on a Friday in the summer here. So
tanned and rested.
And so you talk about stability. It's all in the eye of the beholders, Tom. And for those of us who actually come into the office, that things
Oh,
seem a little stable when no one's here. I mean,
Did you make it one day this week?
I know I have to come in at least 4 days a week, Tom. At least 4 days a week.
Really?
Absolutely. I mean, that's
Yeah.
That
I talked to the big guy, and we're trying to get you in 6 days a week here, beginning January. I look over. Lisa's not tanned and rested. Michael Barr's not tanned and rested.
I was at a bar mitzvah last night.
Definitely not
I got that too.
With our news on a Friday from New York City, Michael Barr.
And we're off. It is the unofficial start to summer, folks. Both the roads and airport runways are getting busy ahead of the long Memorial Day weekend. At Philadelphia International Airport, Public Affairs Manager Heather Redfern says they anticipate a high number of travelers passing through. Redfern says that they had the TSA lines ready with many transportation security agents to speed up the screening process.
Security lines have been busy all day long, but they're moving. The TSA is getting people through at PHL.
Airport officials are predicting nearly 30% more air travelers will take off this long holiday weekend compared to last year. The U.S. Supreme Court made it harder to prove racial discrimination in electoral maps. In a 6-3 vote, the court backed South Carolina Republicans who moved out 30,000 black residents when they redrew a congressional district. South Carolina argued that partisan politics, not race, and a population boom in coastal areas explain the map. Loyola Law School professor Jessica Levinson.
Justice Alito began the majority opinion by saying, remember, partisan gerrymandering, which is where you draw district lines to maintain or increase power based on partisan considerations, that's fine. And the Supreme Court a number of years ago said, in fact, federal courts have no role to play when it comes to partisan gerrymandering.
Professor Levinson spoke to CBS. The fight centered on the boundaries drawn in 2022 by the legislature for one of South Carolina's 7 House districts. Vice President Kamala Harris is gaining voters' trust in key swing states for President Biden. According to a Bloomberg News Morning Consult poll, nearly half of swing state voters, 48%, say they trust Harris to fulfill the duties of the presidency if Biden were no longer able to serve. The Bloomberg survey was conducted in early May. Global news 24 hours a day and whenever you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Michael Barr, and this is Bloomberg. Tom, Damian, Lisa.
Hey, Michael, thanks so much. Out on Twitter, there's Ed Sheeran, the songwriter, I believe he's from England. And he's with Renee Rapp. I love what she did in Mean Girls. And Renee, they're in the front row like Paul Sweeney. They're down there, the Celtics Pacers. And she's explaining basketball to Ed Sheeran, which is what Paul would be doing to me if I was sitting
Shape of You, Ed Sheeran. Well, not the shape of you, Tom. Shape of me, but,
Celtics are like completely dominant. What game are they playing different than everyone else in the NBA?
They're very deep. They're really deep, man. Everyone's playing their role. Horford, these guys know how to play a role. There's Jason Tatum. People get frustrated with Jason Tatum's game because he misses a basket and he's like, all right, whatever, let's move on. But, he cares. They look good.
I adore Tatum.
Yeah, me too.
By the way, that comparison was great about what you said. It reminded me way back in the day when Richard Nixon was trying to explain to John Lennon football during a Monday night football game. That was great, So that just reminded me of that.
Well, good morning to Ed Sheeran and Renee Rapp. I'm just waiting for Sweeney, like next year, the Knicks,
Yeah, it's always next year with the Knicks.
Second row, whatever.
We look ahead to New York Jets.
Say good morning. Futures up 16. Nice lift after the carnage yesterday. NVIDIA, I think, is open for a bid this morning. Yes, we'll get to Ethereum from New York City. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day on Bloomberg Radio, Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Business app. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
This Bloomberg Business Flash brought to you by BNY Mellon's Insight. 3 days of countless opportunities to expand your knowledge and put your practice at the forefront of the wealth management industry. June 4th through June 6th in Nashville. Visit insight.bnymellon.com. All right, to the markets we go. We have green on the screen after the S&P 500 fell the most this month. We have NASDAQ futures up 0.3% at 18,751. Dow futures up 0.1% at 39,195. And S&P futures up 0.2% at 5,300. Strong economic data. They may have many traders pushing back those expectations of interest rate cuts. Goldman Sachs now sees the Fed's first rate cut in September instead of July. Today we'll get a read on durable goods orders and sentiment. The bond market, the 2-year yield 4.93%. That's little change. The 10-year yield at 4.47%, and that is little changed as well. Commodities, gold advancing after 3 days of decline. We have spot gold higher at $2,339 an ounce, and we have oil declining after hitting its lowest level in over 3 months yesterday. Brent crude at $80 a barrel. To earnings we go. Software company Workday cut its full-year subscription revenue forecast. The company also reported first quarter results, which analysts said were mixed. And speaking of work, Citi ordering 600 more staffers back to the office in the U.S. 5 days a week. Regulatory changes are making it harder to work from home. And then Nomura Holdings, top executives getting a bit of a boost. Their pay rose 150% last fiscal year to more than $28 million. That is your Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Paul.
What they're paying you in the end cratered 40%.
Just me, Lisa, don't worry about it.
For that. We're going to pause here for 30 seconds. Damian Sassower in for Paul Sweeney. And I'm getting we're getting out front of Labor Day, getting out in front of that November 1st memo about 2025 work from home, work from office. Yeah. There's something percolating right now.
Well, I mean, I guess so. I mean, they're building charging trees. Did you hear that? All throughout New York City now, so that people like me who have to drive in every day and get hit with the congestion charge have at least the ability to, charge our electric cars for free, make it nice, make it, more interesting.
It's troubled. The whole thing is...
I don't know who's running the city anymore.
John Tucker's buried today, our congestion reporter, but we'll see if we can get him in for a brief here as we can. Futures up 15 on a Friday. Out there, be safe. As Lisa mentioned, the airlines, the traffic, the cars. I think there'll be some impatience on the road. One of the Keene family was out west.
A little road rage out there?
Some tension. The traffic's backed up and people are impatient.
Well, kids are still not back at camp, so.
Yeah, I'll say. Oh, your camp, the Sassower camp, what, 16 weeks?
Look,
See ya?
We like to get the kids to camp. It builds independence. We think it's a very healthy thing for children to leave their parents for an extended period of time. And we're supporters. What can I say?
This year he's going to 20
we put our money where our mouth is.
Joining us, Adam Farstrup. He's with Schroeder's. He had a beleaguered childhood. He only went away to camp 1 week as summer as well. But he joins us now on the basic strategy that's out there. What are you going to write for June 30? I mean, I have real trouble with year-end reviews. I'm with John Farrow, like I want to wait 90 days to see what March looks like. But what will you tweak in a June 30 rewrite right now?
Oh, it's an interesting question, Tom. The first thing is I'm long the Sassower trade, so I'm going to be in a much better mood with my kids out of the house, for 8 weeks.
Good. We like that.
I think what we're looking at is really seeing the economic recovery outside the U.S. starting to come through. So do we see European GDP sustainably moving towards that 2% mark into 2025? And what does that mean for the manufacturing cycle? We saw PMIs in Germany turn up yesterday. That's a very good leading indicator for where the economy might be going outside the U.S.
So talk to me. I mean, look, I read Autumn Graham. She's amazing. Emerging Market Debt, Schroeder's. She wrote the book. She writes the book. She continues to write the book. And so I just need to know where that fits into a portfolio today. Are you thinking of EM fixed income as building ballast, building diversification into your portfolio? Do you think of EM equities as serving that role on the directional side? Talk to us about emerging markets and where that fits into a diversified portfolio here.
Listen, I think on the debt side of things is very interesting right now. Whether you talk about the currencies, you look at the 10-year bond in Brazil trading at 8%, or real yields of 8% rather. I mean, that is very attractive. And when you think maybe the equity markets take a breath from here, I want to sit on very high quality carry and emerging markets debt local currency is a great place to take that.
And you know what's interesting, Tom, is that if you look at 10-year yield differentials between most emerging markets in the U.S., call it the 20 largest, 18 of them are well within their 5-year average. So, you know, yields have come down relative to the U.S. because obviously we see what's going on here in the U.S. But talk to us about the interest rate cycle and how, again, all central banks must follow the Fed. Where are we in this interest rate cycle? I mean, certainly.
So we've been saying for a while now that we thought you need to be conservative about how much the Fed is going to cut. I would have told you 6 weeks ago that I thought the ECB was way closer than they are. I still think they're imminent to cut in June. But now you've got Bank of England. You've got some mixed data.
Oh, come on. Rishi Sunak has decided the Bank of England's got it under control.
He's decided this is maybe the best it's going to get. So, you know, from here, you actually might not see that improvement in the UK inflation as rapidly as they hoped.
Right.
And so I think the Bank of England may have to wait for that signal from the Fed.
Okay, I'm going to go back to take it from Damian's interest rate differential space to just outright nominal GDP.
Yes.
Okay, Brazil's got 8%, but my basic idea is Brazil, Chile with copper, all the rest of them, they're sort of popping. They got a nominal GDP that's getting it done, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And you look at this in an environment where when you talk about that rate cycle, the Latin American central banks, they've pursued an orthodox policy all throughout this environment, or through this period. So they're prepared to cut rates. You're seeing it happen right now. Chile's cutting rates. You've got that copper tailwind. You've got domestic economies starting to move again.
You've got real yields. I mean, you've got real yields are at record highs in most Latin American economies right now. So, I mean, talk to us about real yields, about inflation expectations. You know, what can we expect to see? Is what we're seeing in the U.S. just a microcosm of what we're seeing globally?
I think absolutely what you're going to see is real yields are here with us to stay, right? So we talk about this idea of cash is now a hurdle rate. So there is no alternative anymore. You can start to really spread out and find these opportunities. So think about 5 years ago, if I said to you the equity rally is done, you'd be hoping that sort of U.S. Treasuries were going to work for you. And now I can go and pick up these opportunities for carry. You know, we're buying BTPs in our portfolios because we like the carry.
BTPs. I mean, carry's all the rage, Tom. You know, I have to say. BTPs, those are Italian, right?
Italian bonds.
Yeah, Italian bonds.
For Lisa Matteo and myself, would you define what carry is? Carry was a song by Kansas.
He always asks me this question. I mean, Adam, I'm going to let you handle this one. What is carry in your mind?
Carry on my way.
So it's the opportunity to hear Tom say.
It's the opportunity cost he was going to say, Tom. Please continue, Adam.
It's the opportunity to pick up interest payments in your portfolio so you can sit without a lot of price risk and clip those coupons.
So you're clipping a Brazilian 8%.
Yeah.
And that's called carry because you're in the U.S.
That's right. It's all relative.
4%.
That's right.
That's exactly right.
I do okay there?
That was pretty good.
Yeah, it's good.
It was really good. Yield pickup, right?
I didn't get the level 1 CFA. I got the 0.5. Worked out. Damian saved me.
So talk to me about equities here. I mean, we're at all-time highs here. I mean, are we just, is now the time to double down on growth, or do we kind of push into quality? I mean, where are we?
So listen, where we are in the economic cycle, I don't want to be short U.S. equities from here. Now, you bring up the point, though, valuations are on the high side. And the way I think about it is valuations are the fuel to the fire. They're rarely the spark. So if I'm not worried about the hard landing right now, we've just come through a good corporate earnings season, Q1, in the U.S., and I actually think you can ride that.
This is brilliant. Don't be a stranger. Adam Farstrup with this with Schroeder's. And all I can say is, to me, it goes back. The first chart I looked at today was Atlanta GDP now. I'm sorry, a la Rishi Sunak, there's economic growth here, there, and everywhere, and that's the underlying, if you will, to all this.
And China's starting to play ball also. I mean, we're going to see some PMI data. We're going to see IP comes out next week. We're going to see some activity data out of China. It might be turning up here.
But what's China x their property debacle? It's like a legit GDP.
To invest in China right now, Tom, in my mind, it's just a trade, right? I mean,
nobody's investing. There's no FDI. There's no FDI in China.
No. I mean, I don't think so. I don't think investors, a fiduciary anyway, a real investor in their right mind can invest in China right now.
You don't know who Kansas is, do you? You don't know the band Kansas?
No.
Do you know Styx?
Oh, of course I know Styx. I know Kansas also. Wait, you're asking me about music? Of course, I know both.
Okay.
I know it all. Let's play some Styx. I love Styx.
Futures up 14. Stay with us. Lisa Matteo to save the show. Coming up, Bloomberg Surveillance. Luis Costa will join us from Citigroup.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day on Bloomberg Radio, Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Business app. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio, I'm Lisa Mateo. Futures edging higher after yesterday's losses. Well, they were triggered by expectation the Fed's first interest rate cut would be delayed to December. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen told the Financial Times that prices for housing everyday goods were still high for many U.S. voters. We have NASDAQ futures up 0.2%, 18,747. Dow futures up 0.1%, or 42 points, and S&P futures up 0.2%, or 14 points. Over to the bond market, the 2-year yield at 4.93%. That's little change. The 10-year yield at 4.48%, and that is little change. Who's making news? That's J.P. Morgan. It was ordered by the CFTC to pay another $100 million for supervision failures. Those shares down nearly 1%. And Peloton has clinched a critical $1 billion loan. Sources telling the Financial Times it's going to allow the company to shore up its finances. Their shares are little changed. And finally, is a college degree worth the cost of going to college? Well, nearly 30% of Americans polled told Pew Research Center that it's not. That is your Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Damian.
Lisa Mateo, thank you so much. Damian Sassower in for Paul Sweeney today. We're starting with an EM hour here. We'll do much more. The Ethereum bombshell last night we'll touch upon as well, and lots more in this equity market this morning. Axel Merk will join us on gold later on. Right now, Luis Costa joins us. He's global head of EM at Citigroup, in a really important position for Citigroup with all of their foreign reach in that. Luis, I want to go to something you've brought up as a Renaissance moment that I've now heard. You're the third person in, I'll say, 8 days that have said, finally, Turkey. Why is it now finally, after the massive debacle, the depreciation of Turkish lira, the chaos within their two-tier domestic strategy, why now, finally, Turkey?
Hi, thanks for having me. Yeah, finally, because finally, they are trying really hard to converge to a more orthodox economic policy. And we know that was the past, that was the issue in the past. But now, after meeting so many policymakers from the central bank and even the wording coming out of the government, it feels like there's intention. They've been pursuing it for at least a quarter or so. And this is starting basically to show in the effects, in the macro numbers, generally speaking. For Global Wall Street, it's a name so many people know, Mehmet Simsek. And in the time that I spent in Istanbul, I really got to know him quite well. Is this a Mehmet Simsek? I mean, ex-Merrill Lynch, now working with Erdogan in Turkey. Is this a Simsek revolution we're seeing in Turkey? I wouldn't say, Simsek revolution, but we have a very capable person at the helm of the economic policy now. And he's absolutely determined, right? So if politics allows, he will continue basically to develop this orthodox economic agenda, which means tighter monetary conditions, which means some degree of deceleration in economy. But all we know, if you put this all together, it's very positive for the Turkish lira, hence our longer the lira.
So, Luis, this is incredible. This is, first of all, great to speak with you again. I opened the show this morning talking about the concept of idiosyncratic carry and how emerging markets can kind of fill that gap. I know you mentioned Turkey here, but talk to me about some of these other local emerging markets, like, for example, Egypt, Nigeria. I'm hearing about Dom Rep. I'm hearing about Uruguay. Are those viable markets for institutions to carry in the short end?
They are viable. They are viable, of course. Different strokes for different folks, but they are, depending on the jurisdiction, depending on the markets, this place, they tend to be more illiquid. So not every client, not every global investor will have the appetite to be in liquid markets like this. But you mentioned something very important, which is the search for carry. We are in this environment where global financial volatility is at almost at cyclical lows. right? So, and in an environment where we are still seeing some degree of deceleration coming from the developing markets, although the U.S. is definitely hotter than what we expected it to be by now. So, but if you put this all together, all we know, it feels like a market where you're going to be looking for carry opportunities, front end of the curves, a high yield carry or high yield T-bills. And frontier now, after so much correction in their economic policy, Egypt, you mentioned, right? Yeah. They let the currency go, they hiked rates. So some of these jurisdictions are offering very interesting opportunities for investors now.
And another high yielder that's getting a lot of play in recent weeks is, of course, South Africa. And we have an election coming up next week on Wednesday. Talk to us a little bit about, as an investor, I mean, the Rand has rallied into this election. Talk to us a little bit about how you can invest in South Africa. Is it just a metals and mining play on the equity side? Is it really a carry play on the fixed income side? I mean, are SAGBs back in vogue?
Yeah, that's SAGBs back in vogue. That's right. We love the bonds. We love the bonds now, and we have an overweight in the bonds. We have an overweight in the currency as well. And you mentioned this commodity rally we had recently over the past 3 months. I mean, in terms of trade for South Africa, they have reached a new highs. So we continue to see this, and that filters through the currency, that filters through the markets. Ahead of the elections, there was a lot of investment premium priced in. We know that this political premium is finally receding. So we continue to like South African bonds now. We believe that that's where most of the premium is located, on the bonds.
To both you, and let me go to you, Damian. For mere mortals, listen to this babble on EM. Can they acquire what is easily acquirable, an ETF that captures so-called carry?
You know, I don't know of one. Luis, do you know of any, a vehicle for a retail investor here in the U.S. to really kind of isolate the carry trade and really invest in it? I don't know of any.
Well, there are many. I'm not going to recommend an ETF now. It's not my. they are not paying me for that. But it's there are many ETFs out there, right? So, but it's the options are available, and there are plenty.
I want to get you in trouble with your general counsel here, Luis. I know you're doing an EM thing. Let's look at the emerging market, Japan. The fact is, on a Friday, I'm looking at 170 euro yen. Just a 2-day exponential moving average. I'm well through the intervention levels of 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago as well. Off of the Citigroup desk, do you look for Japan intervention action into our Sunday evening, their Monday morning?
It's very tough to pinpoint the timing, and the last times the markets tried to pinpoint the exact timing, they were wrong, right? Or the BOJ was actually a lot more sensible and careful in not necessarily impacting the markets much. We know that there was a lot of selling of dollars in the past when they felt uncomfortable with certain levels. Right. But most importantly, this frenzy on the yen continues to impose investors towards carry baskets. Right, so but we know using the yen as one important funding currency. So if that continues basically to support the carry basket trade out there.
Right, Luis, thank you so much. Luis Costa, Citigroup, this morning. Damian, overarching this, as we heard from two guests ago, is the basic idea that markets are up. We had the NVIDIA frenzy today, down yesterday, we're rebounding today as well. But the underpinning here into Memorial Day weekend is a market lift. Yeah. To me, it's a bet on GDP. What do you think it's a bet on?
Well, I think it's a bet on GDP as well. I think it is a bet on U.S. exceptionalism still kind of hanging around, not really going anywhere. Maybe the rest of the world participating. But, you mentioned Japan. And just this weekend, a lot of people aren't paying attention. Japan, China, and Korea are having their first trilateral summit in 5 years. And so, regardless of what you're saying in the world, it's U.S. versus China, this and that, those three countries coming together, as we know, Japan and Korea play a very vital role within the U.S. economy. I just look to that as another reason to get bullish here, and so I'm pretty excited.
And the answer is, and this, folks, is the arch theme that I have, is that given all the financial media frenzy, corporations adapt. Yeah. Nations adapt too. And I would respectfully suggest, and without question, our China interview of the week, Elizabeth economy, this is a China that will have to adapt.
Absolutely.
Witness that meeting this week.
And central banks are adapting as well. I think we see that in the fact that they're not easing as rapidly as they were. I'm talking the Hungaries, the Brazils, the Mexicos. They're stopped. So I think, yields are high. They're going to remain high, and they're all relevant to the Fed. So at 5.5% policy rate here in the U.S., things are looking up for EM.
Let's look at the real indicator here on a Memorial Day weekend. Is it tough to get a tee time? I mean, frankly, that's more
really is
informative.
actually to get a good tee time because you want that sort of sweet spot 7:30 to 8 a.m. tee time so you could spend time at the pool with the wife and the kids. But if the only tee times available are 9 to 10, I mean, you can't spend the entire day on the course, Tom. That would just be rude.
So you're doing like 9 holes, or you like even walking off?
I'm going to do 9 holes. Yeah, no, I'll probably do 9.
Yeah.
I'm not an animal, Tom.
If you're doing 18 holes, by the 15th hole, it's actually
it's tired. And I get that tennis elbow thing too. It's only in tournament play where I do the full 18.
Yeah.
Is that a workout?
It is a workout.
Really?
Well, you have to walk, and I like to carry my clubs. I'm no caddy snob, Lisa.
I'm trying to get the dogs in for a puppy clip, and that's how buoyant the economy is.
For a groom, it's hard.
I'm coming back. I'm either dyeing women's hair or clipping dogs' hair. One of the two. That's my
getting blowouts. At the blowout bar in Rybrook is book solid.
Yeah,
for a blowout.
Seriously,
Lisa, what is
$25 bucks. Usually 25, 30.
But these are indicators of the real economy.
Yeah.
Where I get the suffering that's out there. I think we've led on identifying the struggles that so many Americans have, particularly like grocery prices and some of the horrific insurance costs.
Get a mani-pedi.
But at the same time, you can't get a mani-pedi.
I mean, what's going on here?
I mean, Michael Barr was trying to get a mani-pedi down Lexington Street earlier this week. And
that's what I was trying to get on Lexington.
It was tough to do. We're going to get through this Friday. Dow, S&P futures up 14. With our news in New York City, the groomed Michael Barr.
Thank you very much, Tom, Damian, and Lisa. Travelers are taking advantage of the long Memorial Day weekend, and it will be busy. At Philadelphia International Airport, officials anticipate a nearly 30% increase in passengers compared to this time last year. The White House has responded to Senate Republicans who blocked a bipartisan border security bill. Bloomberg's Amy Morris reports from Washington.
In a written statement, President Biden said if Republicans cared about securing the border, they would have voted for the bill. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer after the vote.
I understand that bill was not going to win every Democratic vote or every single Republican vote. That's what bipartisanship is. It's a compromise.
6 Democrats joined Republicans in blocking the measure, including California Senator Alex Padilla.
It includes arbitrary border closures and could practically eliminate the right to seek asylum for people fleeing for their safety.
And even if it had passed, the Senate Republican leaders have made it clear the bill would have been dead on arrival in the House. In Washington, Amy Morris, Bloomberg Radio.
The NCAA and its 5 power conferences have agreed to allow schools to directly pay players for the first time in the 100-plus year history of college sports. The organization says it's prepared to move forward with a multi-billion-dollar agreement to settle 3 pending antitrust cases. Sources say the NCAA will pay $2.7 billion over 10 years to current and former athletes. Executive Director of the National College Players Association, Ramoji Huma, says this could change college sports.
It would be an amazing step towards ending the NCAA's exploitation of college athletes. It would create a pathway towards, out of poverty and into home ownership, owning a business, generational wealth. I think things would be significant in the lives of college athletes.
All Division I athletes dating back to 2016 are eligible to receive a share of the payout, and schools will be able to share up to $20 million per year with players as part of a profit-sharing plan. Global news 24 hours a day and whenever you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Tom, Damian, Lisa.
And now a 3-hour conversation. Who's going to decide how much the guard makes at the University of Michigan? Who decides?
That's a very good question. See, I was from the old school, and Damian and I have talked about this.
Oh, yeah.
Get what you can while you can. When NIL came out, I'm like, yeah, kids, go. And then there are a lot of details now that I realize have to be worked out. And I don't know, if it's too early or what.
Denver hockey, good morning. Cal Ashcroft, defenseman, freshman. How much does Cal Ashcroft make?
Well, I think the real question here is, what does a $2.7 billion settlement signify? What does it represent? And to me,
what
it
represents... A lot of money for lawyers?
Well, how's it going to get allocated, Tom?
Exactly.
Who's it going to? And no one's decided that yet. And what does it really mean? It's still, it's just to get these antitrust suits off their back.
I agree. It's really going to be something. Please stay with us from New York City. Bloomberg Surveillance.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day on Bloomberg Radio, Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Business app. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio, I'm Lisa Mateo. We have NASDAQ, S&P futures up 0.2% right now. Dow futures up 0.1%. To the bond market, the 2-year yield at 4.94%. That's little change. The yield on the 10-year, 4.48%. And that is little change. Checking with commodity, we have spot gold higher at $2,339 an ounce. Brent crude, $81.17 a barrel. WTI crude, $76.70 a barrel. Let's go to the market. Let's see what's checking in with a tax preparation software company, Intuit. That's what we're talking about. Down 5%, raised its full-year revenue forecast, but it gave a forecast for adjusted fourth quarter earnings that was weaker than expected, and that's why those shares are lower this morning. The company also said the CEO of its Credit Karma business will retire by the end of the year. And first it was McDonald's, now Burger King says it's rolling out, yes, a $5 value meal. Bloomberg reporting it'll do it before McDonald's launches its deal late next month, and it will keep it for longer. That is your Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Damian.
Lisa Mateo, thanks so much. Damian Sassower in for Paul Sweeney here. And Damian, it's away from your remit, but I do think it was the focus of the week. I was thunderstruck looking at the NVIDIA financial reports, the CFO comments, and all that. The
you were
stock
reading the
split.
reports?
Yeah,
Really?
yeah. He's actually going in and looking
the beige
at the
book's
website.
next week also. Do you read the beige book?
No, I don't read the beige book, but I read the beige book from NVIDIA. It's a bright green book. And, you know, I was thunderstruck at how this is trying to act like an adult company. Damian Sassower on NVIDIA and AI. Do you believe it's real?
I do. I mean, Mandeep Singh he is the voice.
He was great.
He nails it every time. And my God, he is calling it. He's like, look, this is a company. They have a virtual monopoly. They have moats galore. I mean, it's everything you want in a tech company if you're looking out into the future. And this is a market that's going to reward that. So kudos to NVIDIA. Kudos to the U.S. equity market at an all-time high.
What does it mean for EM? I mean, to me, the basic, and
Risk
I don't mean
on.
just EM debt and carry and all. YouTube live chats just lighten up on carry and the Kansas band, not the carry. But the basic idea here, Damian, is I'm sorry, a lifting equity market lifts all boats?
Yeah, I mean, it does. It really does. It's risk on. It's a positive sentiment indicator. It certainly is for emerging markets. Certainly is for most trading desks who are involved in foreign markets. So yeah, I think it is good. But if you're talking about on a relative basis, you know, how does it look relative to international equities? Yeah, I mean, maybe that gap is still widening. Maybe it's not. But I am just, you know, I'm a little thunderstruck, to use a word, viewers, by just how resilient this U.S. equity market has been.
Now, a look at the front pages. What's making news around the world? Your daily roundup of today's headlines from major publications.
Today's front page is a daily look of the front pages. Brought to you by IBKR. IBKR Financial Advisors switch to Interactive Brokers for lowest cost global trading and turnkey custody solutions. No ticket charges, no conflicts of your interests at IBKR. IBKR.com/RIA. Pumped for Memorial Day. Lisa Mateo.
Oh, I am. I'm already almost checking out. All right, so yesterday we told you Live Nation. Yeah, thanks. Being sued by the DOJ. So the Wall Street Journal has this good breakdown of who is making money off of your concert tickets. So it gave the example of a $100 ticket, which I think is really cheap for a ticket, but $90 goes to the artist, $10 goes to the promoter, like Live Nation. And then customers typically pay fees on top of it, right? You know, when you're done, you get the fee. So 20% or more of a ticket's face value. So a ticket selling platform like Ticketmaster would collect about $5 of those fees. The rest goes to the venue. And then the venue also collects for things like parking, food, alcohol spending. Live Nation owns and operates the venues nationwide. And then finally, the merchandise you have, because the artists partner with merchandisers who covers the $25 cost of making the item, and then they split the profit. So they keep $7, passing $8 to the artist. You know, you see, and then how much the venue gets too.
Isn't the heart of this debate that most concerts you want to go to, you can't get tickets? They're just sold out.
No, I mean, I'm trying to get tickets for the Stones. They're at MetLife on Sunday night. You know, $250 a ticket, Tom. I mean, that's pretty expensive. They're pretty expensive.
Yeah, you can wave to Pennsylvania on that.
I mean, brown-eyed girl, you know. So I mean, but seriously, I mean, like if you just look at them trying, it's amazing how many people get rallied up. I mean, there've been rallies in Washington against Live Nation. I mean, it's real stuff. I mean, senators. It's become a real kind of election talking point, also. No, Lisa?
Is there discussion, Lisa, in the articles you've seen, that it's really about you can't get tickets because that $100 ticket is priced too low? They're more like what Damian's talking about.
Members of Congress can't get tickets.
Yeah, that too. And a lot of people are asking, well, why am I paying so much for this? Like, where is my money going? Yeah, who's getting my dollar? That's what people want to know when they go to
demand. I mean, I looked at Taylor in Paris, and I just, Afterthought wanted to go. Both Vet Bill and Kennel Fee wanted to go. I mean,
not happening.
If we don't get the Gulfstream, we got to put the dogs in the chairs in the plane. It's like outrageous. Next.
My goodness. Okay, Paramount Global reaching a new multi-year distribution agreement with Charter Communications. So this is really big for Paramount because, the company's in talks with Skydance Media, and a blackout would have really hurt those efforts. But now, all of Paramount's networks, including CBS, its streaming services, will continue on Charter Spectrum cable systems. So subscribers to Charter Spectrum, they're going to continue to get those Paramount channels like BET, Comedy Central, Paramount Plus with Showtime on top of it. And then Charter's also making some services available for purchase to its internet-only customers on top of it.
That's a local story, but I'm looking at the stock charts for PARA and Warner Brothers Discovery, and to be blunt, they've had a bad 10 days.
Yeah, no, I mean...
there's a bull market? You don't know it looking at those stocks.
No, it's a really good point in discretionary. I just looked at the S&P, the consumer discretionary subsector is actually now down year to date, which is kind of interesting.
Okay, you're diehard. If Warner Brothers loses, if TNT...
they did. I think they will. So the NBA deal for guys is going to be $7 billion a year for 11 years. You want to talk about a big pot to split up? There it is. And it looks like TNT and TBS are out. So it's going to be Amazon. It's going to be Disney. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Lisa, what else?
Yeah, and that's exactly it. So it's going to be Walt Disney, Comcast, Amazon. This was actually in Lucas Shaw's newsletter.
Lucas was in town. He's the best.
Yeah, so he had the great insight. So this is what they found, that they're finalizing agreements with those three. They're going to pay the league an average of about $7 billion a year over the next 11 years. Disney is going to get that biggest part of the package. That includes the NBA Finals. All three would split the other playoffs and regular season. But what I like what Lucas did is he said that if the NBA signs, Warner Brothers can match them, but it's going to be tough because Comcast is going to put out games on NBC, which is a broadcast network. Warner Brothers doesn't have one of those. The Comcast also involves minimum number advertising impressions. That's easy for NBC, but for Warner Brothers Turner Broadcasting, that's a little bit tough there.
I can't keep
So it's a lot to keep up with. I mean, but Warner Brothers could come back, with the right to match it, but they could also go for like a smaller package of NBA games.
I miss Brent Musburger. yogurt. Next.
There you go. And New York City, you had mentioned this, Damian, those charging stations coming to New York City. It's a company backed by Google. It's called Gravity.
Okay.
And they want to bring, they're calling them quote unquote trees because they look like they're tall, thin, slender. So they're going to fit right into the landscape in New York City, they're saying. They're going to be curbside and they can charge your car in as little as 5 minutes.
Wait, I thought it was going to look like a tree. I thought they were going to disguise them because if they're just going to be metal poles, I don't like that.
It's a metal pole, but it's as thin like the. If you put it next to a tree, the trunks look the same.
Did you say
There's no
charge a given Tesla or whatever in 5 minutes?
In as little as 5 minutes. One will take up to 13 minutes. The other model can take up to 5 minutes.
Because now
That's
they're like
quick.
long. They're like 40, 50 minutes an hour.
You have to sit sometimes for like 25, 30 minutes to charge your full car.
When
but
do we see
that'll
these?
give about 200 miles.
When do we see
But
this?
they're going through the city. They're asking the city if they can bring them to the city
Asking?
streets. Yes. So it's going to be a process. So you might not see them for some time. They are in parking garages on West 42nd Street. though.
There are your newspapers on this Friday. Lisa Mateo, thank you so much. Futures up 17, Dow futures up 62. The VIX, I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, the VIX on the VIX, the VIX on the VIX.
Vixen.
The answer is, you know, it's quiescent out there, to say the least.
No, my chief linear strategist basically told me that, vol is so low. It is carry trade paradise.
You mentioned it before. Nobody wants to hedge.
Nobody wants to hedge, though. I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, look, that's the thing. I mean, you take what the market gives you, and I just find it really interesting that there's just no real interest in derivatives. No, nothing.
Damian Sassower guarantees he'll do another 2 hours with us. That's a good and beautiful thing. Chris Whitley, Poise and Go, here to get your weekend started. Good morning, New Orleans.
This is Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney.
We're addicted to the parlor game, the Fed, the monetary ballet.
Where do you see opportunities in a fixed income space here in 24?
With Lisa Mateo on markets.
AI affecting demand for cloud computing.
And Michael Barr with news.
Another legal setback for Donald Trump, this time across the pond.
The best in economics, finance, investment, and international relations. This is Bloomberg Surveillance on Bloomberg Radio.
Good morning, everyone. Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney. Damian Sassower in for Mr. Sweeney. Good morning to Mr. Sweeney. No doubt on a beach somewhere. Lisa Mateo here. Michael Barr here. It's great. We're having a wonderful Friday slipping into Memorial Day weekend. And Damian, based on what Michael Barr said here, the travel is pre-pandemic or even greater, which is, I think a real surprise, real testament.
Well, look, I mean, I'm not traveling far. I'm going to be sticking local this year, so hey, it's not my problem. No, I'm kidding. But hopefully, traffic is okay and everyone drives safely out there.
Well, yeah, we'll see. And the airlines are there, but it's not the travel frenzy of 4th of July or Labor Day weekend, or it's a different kind of holiday.
Yeah, and the weather's supposed to be nice this weekend, is it not? I think it is.
Yeah, what's fascinating here, we've been getting so much mail on this. Thank you so much for all your response on live chat, emails, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Is this idea of two Americas? Are there two emerging markets? I mean, your expertise is emerging markets, and I get it. There's frontier economies and that, but is there a split in EM of prosperity now?
Well, not a prosperity. I mean, it's hard versus local currency. If you have to split it right down the middle, what I mean by hard currency is any sort of bond, any sort of emerging market asset that's denominated in dollars relative to those that are denominated in their own local currency, and that is the split right down the middle in emerging markets.
Bloomberg Surveillance this morning brought to you by CohnReznick. Advisory Assurance Tax. CohnReznick's enterprise risk management solutions. They can help your company drive value through stronger compliance and reporting procedures. Visit CohnReznick.com. On Apple CarPlay, on YouTube, please join us. Thrilled. Thank you for the response out on live chat. Is Lisa Mateo's joining us? We got to get you out on live chat. That would be fun.
I need a login.
How
does that happen?
We're working on that.
You got to work up a YouTube page.
How does that happen, Rich?
we got to do that. Our Bloomberg Business Flash. Lisa Mateo.
You got it. We have futures advancing after a Thursday sell-off. This was despite a more than 9% surge in NVIDIA. NVIDIA shares right now up more than 1%. And the wealth of its co-founder, Jensen Huang, well, it's now greater than each individual member of the Waltons, which is America's richest family. So we have NASDAQ futures up 0.3%. S&P futures up 0.3% as well. Dow futures up 0.1%. And traders are pushing back expectations of interest rate cuts by the Fed to later in 2024. That's following that strong U.S. economic data from yesterday. Atlanta Fed President Raphael Bostic said the central bank needs to be patient on its next move, and there is still some upward pressure on prices. Today, we'll hear from the Fed's Christopher Waller. To the bond market, the 2-year yield at 4.94%. That's little change, and the yield on the 10-year 4.48%, and that is little change. Who's making news? It's Alphabet and Meta Platforms. They've been talking with the major film studios about licensing content for use with artificial intelligence video generation software. That's according to sources. Alphabet and Meta both up about 0.5%. Meanwhile, Meta working on a paid version of its AI assistant. That's according to the information. And sources saying Elon Musk's SpaceX planning to sell shares at a valuation of about $200 billion. That is your Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Damian.
Lisa Mateo, thanks so much. I think one of the interviews this week that was so important was Christopher Waller. I just think a lot of what he said here, and this is a guy, obviously out of the St. Louis, he was a researcher, I should say, with the St. Louis Fed, and now a governor of the Fed. And, he just said, I'm sorry, the economy's there. And to me, the underlying tone of this Memorial Day, and you see this with the shock election in England, Damian Sassower, is the economies are way better than all the institutional forces and pundits thought they'd be.
Yeah, but at the end of this weekend, after people realize what they're going to pay to have a good time, I think the inflation story is going to gather a little bit of steam, right? The cost for some barbecue, maybe the cost for, as I said, a Rolling Stones ticket. I mean, this is what people are going to be thinking about by Tuesday morning.
Aren't you a little late to procure those tickets?
No, they're out there. I looked last night.
There's tickets out
there. Hundreds, which is not, it's kind of back there, but it's totally fine. You get a nice shot of Mick
it's like
Jagger.
Keith Richards. He's so old right now that you want to. It's like Tootsie. You want to move back to Cleveland. So that's what you're going to do. Good morning, Keith.
Keith, good morning.
We also say good morning to Paul Ashworth. He's going to save the moment right now. Chief North American Rolling Stone economist at Capital Economics. Paul, I'm talking, let's go to Rishi Sunak. And he's going, okay, this is as good as it gets. I'm going to have a snap election July 4 in the United Kingdom. Paul Ashworth, does this permeate across all of the major economies, that things are just simply better than so many people thought?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something we've learned, that economies are well placed to cope with higher interest rates. Obviously, the US has outperformed all the other G7. We've seen growth slow and almost stagnate in Europe and the UK. That was partly to do with the earlier energy price shock. But now prices are coming back down. We're even beginning to see growth pick up a little bit in those economies too. So certainly it is better than we expected, and nobody's really suffered a deep recession in terms of one where the unemployment rate has risen significantly.
Paul, I'm reading your note here on U.S. inflation and, the contribution from healthcare hiring and all of that. But isn't it really OER that investors should be most focused on here as it relates to the CPI prints on a forward basis?
Certainly on the CPI, I mean, simply because it's roughly 40% of the core CPI basket. I mean, at that sort of weighting, OER. And
but what is the importance of healthcare hiring and spending here? I mean, is that something we should be, and that investors should be focused on?
Well, certainly with real consumption. I mean, we know that, for instance, retail sales were pretty weak in April. We think the saving grace for consumption in April is just going to be the fact that services spending is still coming in strong. I mean, we've talked for a while now about the rotation back from goods spending back to services, and that finally seems to be happening in earnest.
Paul, tell me what your real GDP and nominal GDP view is 12 months forward at Capital Economics.
12 months forward, by that time we'd expect interest rates to be coming down a little bit, and that should provide a little bit more juice for the economy. In addition, we should expect some positive wealth effects coming through from what we're seeing in housing and stock markets. So I think, if anything, with the next 12 months might be a bit more difficult, but if we look forward to 12 months' time, then certainly I expect to see most G7 economies reaccelerating again.
Paul, thank you so much. Paul Ashworth with us today from Capital Economics. Just a fabulous firm. This is one of these firms, Damian, where they published the first day they put it together, and everybody read it like crazy. It was so smart. But, Damian, I look at what Paul Ashworth's saying there, and again, this is the Memorial Day bet. That's right. I understand there's 2 or even 3 Americas, and the candidates are talking about the struggles that are out there. But we're pretty much where Ed Yardeni says. It's a boom economy. It's a roaring 20s. That's how we greet this weekend.
Well, I think what Paul was saying is this core versus services, right? And we all thought, the core disinflation that we witnessed is over, said and done with. I think it's picking up again here. We're gonna start looking at steak prices, chicken prices. We're gonna be looking at the prices for things this weekend, and I think you're gonna see that inflation is here to stay.
Okay, you're saying inflation's here to stay, but I'm seeing food inflation finally get quiescent. Granted, it's at a level above 2019. Nobody's up. Lisa, are you buying beef this weekend?
I sure am.
Really?
Got to put it on the grill.
We're coming over.
It's Memorial Day weekend.
Right, but we're not getting the choice, 98% lean. We're talking, but seriously, in all seriousness, Tom, I think inflation, again, is a big underlying question. We have payrolls coming up, not next Friday, Friday after. So we got a bit of a gap here. Yeah, it's summer months. It's going to be, low vol environment, good environment to carry.
The low vol environment, what does that mean to people that aren't carrying? To me, it means we go up when we least expect it, and then there's these sudden pullbacks, but we haven't pulled back to a correction. I mean, that's the headline news here.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I agree. And look, I think that's the risk, but you can't really manage a portfolio to that, Tom. I mean, if you keep managing to the downside, you're going to get your face ripped off, and that's what's been happening for the better part of not just the last year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. So, so buy Mexican peso.
Buy Mexican peso?
If you look at the Mexican peso amongst all G10 and emerging market currencies over the past, again, 1, 3, 5, 10, I mean, it's a winner. I mean, it's amazing versus to the dollar.
16.68. In the 2016 election, I would monitor it off of the Clinton-Trump arguments.
It's
and it
changed,
was
though. The drivers have
strengthened.
changed. And the drivers have changed. People used to look at it as an EM proxy. Then it's a U.S. proxy. Now it's the nearshoring proxy of, the logistics supply chain being rerouted. I mean, it's amazing. It's really a resilient currency.
So it's a China tie-in.
Now, that's a theme that people are playing for sure.
What's the modeling out on the street of peso at 16, 17?
We've got an election coming up. They might have, the mayor of Mexico City, a Jewish female, Claudia Sheinbaum. She's the choice to be the new president. It's more of the same. And so, Morena's going to probably run away with it. It's good for business. It's a good place to do business. And so, and yields are in the double digits, Tom. I mean, I think the policy rate's in the 10s. So, I mean, good place to carry.
Damian Sassower, thank you so much. 10% yield. It's like the Brazil earlier, folks. 8% yield.
Sorry.
Really? I mean, can you imagine triple leveraged all cash?
How boring
Brazil
was that?
fund? 8% is 24%. I could gross out 24% on triple leveraged all Brazil fund.
Pemex local debt.
And then, there'd be fees involved. Futures up 14, Dow futures up 51. Saving the show with our news from New York City, Michael Barr.
Thank you very much, Tom, Damian, and Lisa. The FAA expects this Memorial Day will be the busiest for travel in 14 years. When it comes to paying for your vacations, the overall cost is down 1% from last year. Hotel costs are relatively flat, while car rentals and airfare saw slightly bigger decreases from last Memorial Day weekend. However, most of the airlines raised their fees on checked bags. At Philadelphia International Airport, spokesperson Heather Redfern said they're predicting nearly 30% more air travelers to take off this long holiday weekend compared to last year.
We are expecting about 565,500 passengers to travel either to depart or arrive through the airport. That's about 29% higher than 2023 and about 1% higher than in 2019.
Additional TSA agents were assigned to screen the anticipated increase. The bodies of 3 other hostages recovered from Gaza. The hostages' families' forum releasing a statement announcing the bodies recently recovered by the IDF in Gaza are those of Michael Nissenbaum, Hannah Yablanca, and Orion Hernandez. The 3 hostages are believed to have been killed on October 7th. Their bodies now return to Israel for burial. The wave of pro-Palestinian demonstrations that spread across college campuses nationwide took center stage on Capitol Hill yesterday. The presidents of UCLA, Rutgers, and Northwestern testified how they handled pro-Palestinian demonstrations on their campuses. UCLA Chancellor Gene Block says the school's first encampment last month should have been dealt with sooner.
With the benefit of hindsight, we should have been prepared to immediately remove the encampment if and when the safety of our community was put at risk.
And when pressed by Republicans on how many students were disciplined, the college president said investigations are still underway. Global news 24 hours a day and whenever you want it with the Bloomberg News Now. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg. Tom, Damian, Lisa.
Coming in on the email hopper last night was Louisville Clubs really wants me, Louisville Golf, to buy a set of irons with hickory shafts and an LG LFF Classic Jumbo persimmon driver for $400. Have you ever played wooden clubs?
No. I've never played. I think a wooden shaft, it can't be a wooden club head, though.
No, that's a metal club.
Right.
Metal.
So they're
it's
not
like
really,
you
can't play with those. Today the torque, I swing so fast. My swing speed, Tom, is so fast. This club head would just crack, it would fly right up.
Michael, do you see how he changes there?
Lord
it's just, he's an animal.
Listen, Tom.
From New York, Bloomberg Surveillance. Good morning.
Well,
markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day on Bloomberg Radio, Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Business app. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio, I'm Lisa Mateo. We've got green on the screen after the S&P 500 fell the most this month. Right now we have NASDAQ futures and S&P futures up 0.2%, Dow futures up 0.1%. Strong economic data may have traders pushing back expectations of interest rate cuts. Goldman Sachs now sees the Fed's first rate cut in September instead of July. And today we'll get a read on durable goods orders. That comes out in about 15 minutes. Later, a report on sentiment. And the crypto industry closer to another landmark after the SEC paved the way for the eventual launch of the first U.S. ETFs investing directly in the Ether token. So let's check in with Ethereum right now. They're at about 3,720. Bitcoin just over 67,000 right now. You love it, Tom. To earnings we go. Software company Workday down 10%. It cut its full-year subscription revenue forecast. The company also reported first quarter results, which analysts said were mixed. And speaking of work, Citi ordering 600 more U.S. staffers back to the office 5 days a week. And Nomura Holdings top executives, they're getting a pay boost. Their pay rose 150% last fiscal year to more than $28 million. That is your Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Damian.
Lisa Mateo, thank you so much. He's smarter than we are. There's like a heat wave in Miami, so Mike McGlone is, of course, in New York.
He's definitely smarter than I am.
Mike McGlone joins us right now with just brilliant work here in commodities and steadfast belief in a higher at Bitcoin. Mike, I guess it goes to the silliness of the Doge with a dog, I guess, dying at 18, and I get it all in that. But I went back today and I looked at the founding of Ethereum, which basically was in a rented house in Miami where Vitalik Buterin and a bunch of other people invented Ethereum. Just a basic question, Mike, the people that aren't up to speed on this. Why is the SEC even involved in a discussion of Ethereum?
So it's Vitalik, I think is how people pronounce his name.
Thank you, Michael.
I think you'd appreciate that. So here's the significance of Ethereum. It's the technology. It makes possible the most widely traded crypto. It's not Bitcoin, it's the dollar. Tether. Tether's a token that tracks Bitcoin. It's the technology that Ethereum promotes that makes that happen. And it's what most people don't know. When you clip on volume on one of these crypto sites, the most widely traded is the buck. It's not Bitcoin. So Ethereum makes that happen, and it's potentially going to have an ETF launch. But I think what people are overestimating, it's just not as widely known as Bitcoin.
It's way less known. I get that. But if you buy Ethereum, are you just what are you buying? A currency pair?
Well, you're buying something, from my standpoint, it's somewhat like Bitcoin. It has definable diminishing supply. You can see that by code, and increasing demand and adoption. From my standpoint, everything else is, okay, well, what it does, it helps make tokenization possible, NFTs, things like that. So
Damian, save me here.
No, I can't save you here, Tom, because I don't believe in crypto, but Mike McGlone and I know this. So let me ask you a real question, Mike. The gold to oil ratio is at its highest since May of 2021. Yeah. Gold prices. I mean, and look in the volatility market, right? I mean, gold vol, what a premium you can extract by selling gold vol relative to crude vol. What are you seeing in those two markets right now?
Well, Damian, I appreciate you going there. And maybe you can tell we sit next to each other. We've been the breakfast club at Bloomberg starting at 6 a.m. for decades. Yeah. That's the most enduring trend in commodities, is gold beating most commodities, particularly WTI crude oil. So at 31 barrels of WTI per 1 ounce of gold, I think the next step is that's going to go to 60. That's not profound to say that, because that's the trend. Right. I mean, so you look at it as a commodity guy, what's the enduring trend? So gold on the year is actually up more than that AI-driven S&P 500. It's backed up a little bit, but it's Chinese buying is what's significant to gold.
Chinese buying, if there's just as a general statement, central bank buying, what would force central banks to sell gold?
Mm-hmm. Right now, the number one thing I think, Tom, would be significant détente. If President Xi picked up the phone and called President Putin and said, dude, this is not working, this unlimited friendship, to me, that was the trigger that flipped the whole world order towards, okay, we're worried about the dollar. We have this situation of wars going on in Europe and Middle East, and we have the second largest country in the world somewhat supporting it by the unlimited friendship, so it's tilt towards gold.
Well, I mean, I'm looking at a chart here from Mike McGlone, Tom, and you won't believe this. I mean, the man is overlaying the China 10-year yield relative to the Bloomberg Commodity Index, and there's a significant divergence, right, that takes place during the pandemic. So I think this speaks to what you're talking about. But, talk to Tom's audience, my audience, about the short squeeze in copper. Talk to us about what is really going on there, because I think copper, even though gold is up significantly, is really the best performer this year.
So copper has been the problem with Dr. Copper. It looks like it was more driven by managed money futures, i.e. hedge funds getting way too long, riding the trade, and now they're starting to hit their stops. And there's a good reason to hit those stops is when you have prominent economists come out and say, oh, it's going to go to, it went up from 4 to 5 and it's going to go to 6 or 7. That's usually when you look at copper, it's so autocorrelated, it's typically going down. But you measure Chinese bond yields, 2.3% is a Chinese 10-year note. U.S. 10-year note is 4.6 or 4.5 or so. Right. That's a significant deflationary signal from a country. You can't believe what they say, but you got to watch what they do and watch what their markets are telling you.
Mike McGlone with us in our studios in Newark, UC Wisconsin, Miami. For all of our listeners, I've gotten a lot of mail on global warming and the global heat wave, what we're seeing in the southern Pacific and, frankly, over to the Sahara and up to Spain and such. In America, not as a generalization, but Miami, the New York Times says insane heat has been scorching Miami. Have you witnessed this? Is it as bad as they say?
Well, as my wife says, the sauna goes on in like May and stays on until October.
Is it worse this year?
I don't.
Why do you
think
know. He's in New York, Tom? He's here because it's so hot down there. And he brought the wife. They're probably going to be here for the next month.
Is the Miami boom over?
No, it's just getting started. Here's the problem, Tom.
How's it just getting started? People are leaving Orlando.
Dominic Frisby wrote this book called we
don't know, but we'll get Dominic Frisby's book in a minute. But what did he say? What was the net point there?
It's the power of the tax. The daylight robbery is the name of the book. Power of the tax. When you get your tax bill in Florida, it's 0. That's shocking. It's unfair. But if you get a bonus in New York, they typically take 9%. It's unstoppable.
Yeah. So it's a tax issue.
Daylight robbery. The power of the tax has driven so much business in the world, and then now it's just unstoppable in Miami for now.
People are saying the working class in Florida have been priced out.
Yeah.
They're moving to Georgia. They're moving to North Carolina and all that. Like, how far north can Miami go?
That's a good question. If you're working class and you own a home, you're doing fine. If you don't, that's a problem. But I like to say, people, why don't you go to Hazelcrest, Illinois? That's where I'm from. No one goes there. Why? Because it's just not a great place to go. So it's a problem of a big boom. I admit that it's bad for the working class, but it's just because the demand pool is so strong.
And seriously, I mean, you're down there representing Bloomberg, doing a killer job at it. You suggest that American Wall Street will continue to migrate to Miami?
The power of the tax, 0 tax, is unstoppable.
Well, talk to us.
I don't disagree. I'm just listening.
I'm curious. I mean, as we all know, Mike McGlone from the Midwest of the U.S. He is a farmer. He knows the grains market, and so I'm curious to hear your thoughts on what this warmer weather means for the U.S. for these harvests for food prices. I mean, it's Memorial Day weekend, Tom. We keep talking about it. How much should we be focused on? Cattle prices, livestock, grains prices. Is that meaningful? Are you seeing anything there?
Greenhouse effect is what's happening in the Midwest. I'll be there next week. And it's this massive excess of supply. So unless we get a bad weather year, you basically need a drought. Corn, which right now is pushing their 5, is probably going to trade towards a 3 handle. There's an excess of supply. It's a high price cure. And the most elastic commodities are the grains. I mean, they respond in the year. So we have the price pump, massive supply out of South America, and now it's coming out of the US.
I got 30 seconds left. Live cattle, beef.
No clue.
The prices, no clue?
No clue.
Cocoa.
You're on surveillance. Peaked. Never say no clue. You're allowed to have an opinion even if it's wrong.
Cocoa's peaked. You hear that?
Cocoa's peaked.
My Kit Kats are going to get cheaper now.
Okay. Don't be a stranger. Michael McGlone, and seriously, folks, with what we've seen with BitDog, congratulations to Michael McGlone, who was steadfast in thinking through the XBT process as well. Futures up 11. Let me do a data check here to get us through the morning. Futures up 11. The VIX was 11 handle, now 12.62. Massive angst out there. Just no other way to put it. Levels, S&P just below 5,300. Dow back to 39,174. NASDAQ well under 19,000, 18,700. I'm only quoting Bitcoin because McGlone's here. 67,000. His heart just skipped. Okay, I'm sorry, Mike. 67,400. I don't know how to quote Ethereum. I'll get to that. That'll be my task over the weekend. Seriously, the 10-year real yield elevated 2.17. That's important. Please stay with us. Damian Sassower and Tom Keene on YouTube, on Apple CarPlay. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day on Bloomberg Radio, Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Business app. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio, I'm Lisa Mateo. Futures edging higher, and this is after yesterday's losses were triggered by expectations the Fed's first interest rate cut will be delayed until December. We have NASDAQ S&P futures up 0.2%. Dow futures little change at 39,181. Now, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, she told the Financial Times that prices for housing and everyday goods were still high for many U.S. voters. We'll head to the bond market. The 2-year yield, 4.95%. That's up a basis point. The 10-year yield, 4.49%. That's up a basis point. Commodities, gold advancing after 3 days of declines. We have spot gold higher at $2,337 an ounce. And we have oil declining after hitting its lowest level in over 3 months yesterday. Brent crude at $81.13 a barrel. Who's making news? JP Morgan. It was ordered by the CFTC to pay another $100 million for supervision failures. Those shares are little changed. And Peloton, it's clinched a critical $1 billion loan. Sources tell the Financial Times it's going to allow the company to shore up its finances. Their shares up more than 1%. That is your Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Damian.
And Lisa, thanks so much. Bloomberg Surveillance, days of economic indicators, maybe not today, but each and every day, Commonwealth shows up, and we say thank you to Commonwealth. Our economic indicators brought to you by Commonwealth, supporting more than 2,000 independent financial advisors with the solutions they need to grow a thriving business. Commonwealth, go where you grow. Visit Commonwealth.com to learn more. I know one large mutual fund, I'm going to keep the name out of it, where their top 10 stocks are 55% of the fund holdings. I think we've all got this inherent understanding that in this age of maximum big tech stocks, things are out of whack. Like in one ETF, Microsoft is 24%, Apple's 20%, but NVIDIA, even with Damian Sassower all over it, is only 4.4%. A real expert joins us now on what's down the road for the ever-growing NVIDIA. Robert Van Battenberg joins us with the Bear Traps Report. You've really thought this through. Is it a basic statement that NVIDIA is under-owned by index fund, under-owned by ETFs?
Yes, it is under-owned, actually, by a lot of mutual funds. That's a well-known fact, but there's one particular ETF, and we discuss it also in Larry's book, Listen When Markets Speak, about the impact that passive investors have and the growing role of passive. Passive is now more than 50% of total assets in mutuals and ETFs. And they're playing and there are different groups of passive investors, right? They're overlaying each other. In this particular case, there is an ETF called the XLK. It's a State Street ETF, and there's during an arcane rule, the two top holdings in that ETF have more than 20% weight, but the third weighted stock, which is NVIDIA, has only 4.5% weight.
So when and what happens here? At some point, they've got to buy NVIDIA, right?
So if NVIDIA exceeds Apple's market cap, so NVIDIA's market cap is right now $2.5 trillion, Apple is $2.9 trillion, maybe a little bit less. I think the difference right now is $300 billion. Mind you, NVIDIA is up 100% year to date, so it's encroaching on Apple. If and when NVIDIA overtakes Apple, and then that Axel K, that ETF, which has about $70 billion of assets, would have to sell Apple down to 5% and have to buy NVIDIA up to 20%. You will see $10 billion of capital moving from Apple to NVIDIA. Now, they do their quarterly rebalancing 4 times a year. So the first rebalancing would be sometime in June. So traders, hedge funds, they are aware of this idiosyncrasy.
What about, Damian, this is so important.
I mean, I love this. This is right in my wheelhouse.
What about with regular mutual funds where you don't have a 20-20, then 4% NVIDIA? I mean, as a general statement, these stocks are moving so fast, they're grossly under-owned, right?
Yeah, some of them are under-owned. NVIDIA is under-owned. So they would have they have to increase their exposure to NVIDIA, and that will grow gradually. You know, we all know about the window dressing that some of these mutual funds have to do. So by the end of each quarter, when they send the quarterly statements.
Robert, you're chief market strategist at the Bear Traps, and this is right in my wheelhouse because what you're doing is you're screening the market for structural anomalies, right? And that's what this is, right? The fact that an ETF, a big ETF, has to rebalance, go out into the market and buy shares of NVIDIA. But my question is this: wouldn't you think the fund manager, the ETF manager there, would maybe use synthetics, maybe use options to build that exposure in without having to impact the market necessarily? I mean, are there ways that the fund manager can do that to sort of offset some of this risk of being exposed?
Well, they have to do it no matter what, whether they are front-running that, and I'm sure they do some of it, but a lot of it is mechanical, and we discussed it in the book as well. It's very mechanical. You were talking about volatility before. Volatility has become also a playground for a lot of mechanical selling of volatility and buying the market when volatility breaks through certain thresholds. And it's not that the macro environment is so benign right now. There are obviously always going to be these risks, but for CTAs or vol targeting funds, they don't care. When VIX goes to 13, they buy the S&P and they sell and this is how. And then you have of course the option dealers that are long gamma, which are suppressing volatility even more. But in this particular case, I think a lot of traders, a lot of smarter guys than they are fully aware of this, and they're going to try to squeeze State Street into this trade.
They force them into the trade. This goes back to
this is what I find just a little bit suspect in this one is we're talking about a super liquid stock. We're talking with a huge options market in NVIDIA. So what I'm looking for are bear traps in other markets. Like, for example, Indian government bonds need to be added to, being added to the JP Morgan Global Bond Index. Bloomberg's adding them at the end of the year. When these less liquid asset classes, when you have an anomaly like this, is that a bit of an easier opportunity for an arbitrageur such as yourself to take advantage of? Because, I just feel like how does your average investor or institutional investor take advantage of this anomaly in NVIDIA and Apple?
Well, you buy NVIDIA, you're anticipating, you have to be aware that this could be a squeeze, right? This could be a squeeze because, you have this 10 billion lurking in the background. Let's also not forget there's this other, structural fund out there that has to roll their short call in the market by the end of June, the JHEX, the JP Morgan Hedged Equity. That's an $18 billion fund.
Right.
So you could see that these anomalies could really play out by the end of June. And that's where we are.
I want to go back to a core idea. My essay of the year, I think it was for 2023, I can't remember, was Lawrence McDonald. He had a long essay that got, frankly, a rarity. It got better paragraph by paragraph.
A rarity.
And basically what Larry McDonald said is, look, here's the wall of money that's out there. It's going to go somewhere. Some will stay static, some will move here, some will move there. Give us an update on that. Is there still this proverbial wall of money out there comfortable at 5% that at some point has to find a warm spot?
Yeah, I mean, there's $6 trillion in money market funds. They are right now happy where they are because the Fed keeps Fed funds rate at 5.5%. Once the Fed starts cutting rates, some of that money will find its way into the market. Some of the money will find their way into stocks or high-yield bonds. And, of course, the bond market has also been a backdoor in the stock market because a lot of companies issue bonds to buy back stock. So, there's still that money on the sideline. And then, of course, you have the other usual suspects that are driving, that they're pouring money into the capital markets.
I want to say something that's important. Every Friday, typically, folks, Friday, the gloom industry publishes. And the great thing about bear traps is they don't publish gloom.
That's right.
They publish research.
That's right.
And that's a big, big distinction here. I
mean, this is the takeaway here, and I'm so curious. How do you screen for these opportunities? Because it isn't easy, right? I mean, you're looking at the constituents and the indices and then the ETFs, and you're trying to figure out how they're restructuring a quarterly re-end. How do you screen for these opportunities, and do they extend to small caps, mid caps, other asset classes?
Yeah, I mean, you have to know what is in play, right? So, for example, S&P inclusion it's a textbook example. We saw some of the stocks that were included into the S&P, right, in the last couple of months. They ripped higher. We saw it with Uber, for example. And especially when you have M&A targets. Like right now, in play is international paper, right? Brazilian companies were looking to buy international paper. By the way, that's a testament of how slowly but surely foreign capital is buying the industrial heartland of America. But once they take over and absorb international paper, there's a slot opening up for another company to go into the S&P. Well, international paper has a 1.2% weight. So that's significant. If $35 trillion is following the S&P, that means $350 billion is going to go into that.
NVIDIA does a 10-for-1 stock split. Does that make it a Dow component? I mean, does Cisco go and NVIDIA goes into the Dow?
It could be. It could be. Yeah, that's up for them. Yeah, I think it's a Dow component, and we'll have to see. I mean, they just made their Dow changes, so yes, I'm sure they're vying for it. But there are other companies that are vying for it as well.
I want to get back to Teldar paper. No, sorry, Bud Fox, international paper. That was so interesting. So tell me, how, again, how do we learn about these opportunities? How do we screen for them? I mean, do we just get bear traps? I guess we have to get the bear traps report. What else is out there?
Well, yeah. So that's one aspect. So S&P inclusion, reweightings, rebalancings is one aspect. As you pointed out, also emerging market bonds, inclusions in some of the indices. I think a lot of people right now focused on these hedged ETFs.
Yeah.
The Astrums have been ballooning.
Okay, we're going to have to run it. We're out of time. Robert, I got one quick question. Has Larry sold the movie rights to the book yet?
Yes.
Yeah, we're going to look for that. Okay, Robert Van Battenberg, thank you so much. Really, really interesting there. Another take on this NVIDIA frenzy. Futures advance on Robert Van Battenberg's comments. Futures up 19. With our news in New York City, Michael Barr.
Thank you very much, Tom, Damian, Lisa. Despite severe weather across the country, the Memorial Day travel rush has taken off at airports across the country. Passengers showing up early to their flights in the hopes of getting out on schedule, even with the threat of delays. This man flying out of New York says while he understands the weather concerns, he hopes it will not impact too many trips.
I don't want to fly in hail. I'm sure they don't want to fly in hail, so there's not another flight for a while, so if it gets delayed a little, that's okay. But if it gets straight up canceled, that's going to be a bummer.
Airport officials are predicting nearly 30% more air travelers will take off this long holiday weekend compared to last year. Israel is bracing for the top United Nations court to rule today on whether it must halt its military operations and withdraw from Gaza. In the meantime, Aaron David Miller, senior fellow at Carnegie Endowment for the International Peace, says he does not see the fighting between Israel and Hamas ending anytime soon.
CIA Director Bill Burns is on his way to Europe in coming days to meet with the Mossad head, David Barnea, and the Qataris to determine whether or not there is any possibility of negotiating a ceasefire. But even here, Middle East negotiations always have two speeds, slow and slower. And Benjamin Netanyahu's objectives and Yahya Sinwar, the principal Hamas decision maker, ensconced in some tunnel somewhere below Rafah, Khan Yunis, neither of them see much urgency in bringing this to an end.
Aaron David Miller, senior fellow at Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. Attorneys for Hunter Biden are due in court today for the final hearing before the president's son is expected to stand trial on federal firearms charges in Delaware. Hunter Biden is charged with lying about his drug use in October of 2018 on a form to buy a gun that he kept for about 11 days in Delaware. Global news 24 hours a day and whenever you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Michael Barr, and this is Bloomberg. Tom, Damian, Lisa.
And Michael Barr, thanks so much. So glad, Damian, that Robert Van Battenberg mentioned International Paper. I did a series of interviews with them like 3 managements ago, and I was absolutely baffled at how slow motion the company was. Their 10-year total return is 1% per year.
Is that really?
It has been just.
Do they pay dividends?
Why shouldn't we let a foreign buy? It can't be worse.
The stock has really ripped it here. I guess it's got to be on the back of the commodity trade, right, Tom?
Well, we'll have to see. We'll continue on this. Bloomberg Surveillance.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day on Bloomberg Radio, Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Business app. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio, I'm Lisa Mateo. Futures pointing to a higher open. We have NASDAQ futures up 0.3%. Same for S&P futures. Dow futures up 0.1%. The bond market, the 2-year yield 4.95%. That's up a basis point. The 10-year yield at 4.49%, and that's up a basis point. Some more economic data out this morning. The latest reading on April durable goods orders. Well, they came in better than economists were looking for, rising 0.7%. Companies making news. That's tax preparation software company Intuit, down 5%. It raised its full-year revenue forecast, but it gave a forecast for adjusted fourth quarter earnings that was weaker than expected. The company also said the CEO of its Credit Karma business will retire by the end of the year. And first it was electric vehicles, now it's semiconductors. The Communication Workers of America set to begin talks for a so-called labor peace agreement with Micron Technology. Micron shares, they're up more than 1%. That is your Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Damian.
Lisa, thanks so much. Bloomberg Surveillance this morning, brought to you by Interactive Brokers, their bond marketplace. Access their vast selection of over 1 million global fixed income securities. No markups, no built-in spreads, and low transparent commissions. Learn more at ibkr.com/bonds. We scheduled this, and we did it around the NVIDIA frenzy, but much more around just general AI. There was Sean McNulty, thank you so much, yesterday out on Twitter. There was a hilarious Twitter image of a girl with a tuba holding the tuba to the head of another girl, and it said that the girl was Microsoft burying the other girl with AI. It looked funnier than I'm describing.
Thanks, Tom.
To provide some wisdom here, Angelina Bassiampili joins us now with Pictet Asset Management, Geneva, Switzerland. And this is your wheelhouse. You've got to go out to clients and say, okay, AI is ChatGPT. It's going to help computer programmers. AI is this, AI is that. How much pushback are you getting right now at Pictet on the future of AI?
So I think there's no question about how it, there's no going back in terms of the industrial revolution, which is AI. There's no question there. But I think at the moment we're really building the railroads. So really the cloud CapEx is a big story before even NVIDIA and the GPU chips. And then tomorrow we're going to be running the trains on that railroad. So understanding the building blocks of AI is what really helps.
Damian wants to dive in. I got one more question.
Sure.
Those railroad tracks you're building to get AI running on the railroad, what's the timeline out to use of AI by our viewers and listeners?
That's a great question.
It's my only one of the day. I'm leaving after this. I got the shorts and flip-flops
the pressure.
on.
No, the reality is that you need to build these data centers, right? And at the moment, we're both land constrained and power constrained. These famous GPUs that we talked about all of yesterday, they use 5 times more power density than a traditional CPU or central processing unit data center. So you have all these kind of roadblocks, but at the same time, lots of opportunities because it's reshoring, nearshoring. Big theme here with Gina Raimondo, $39 billion in basically the CHIPS Act, plus $11 billion in R&D. Massive, massive investments. When you look at today, there's about $325 billion out there in investments for brand new fabs. The second is also that you need to find these data centers which are closer. At one point, they'll have to be closer to cities. The famous inferencing versus training. So training, you need brand new data centers. There's a lack of land. There's a lack of, and the rent's obviously going up when you're looking at inferencing. And then there's a lack of power. So it bodes well for a lot of other companies in the full supply chain of semiconductors. So, when you're building these fabs, it's minimum 20 to 30 billion. You're adding in all these semi-equipment makers all around the world, which is really fabulous. And then I think there's the chip kind of complexity. This is the bit that yesterday was super interesting with the news. Yeah, exactly. Chip complexity requires even more investments, and Gina Raimondo has made it very clear she wants to, by 2030, be kind of...
So, Anjali,
Paul and I are skeptical. Damian,
I'm not. I think AI extends beyond... it's digital, it's robotics, it's security, it's Anjali will tell you, it's everything. But, what I see is, from an investment perspective, I see potential for some huge lawsuits. Scarlett Johansson, did you see this news that she's suing Sam Altman and ChatGPT because they're using her voice?
Yeah.
So, as we go forward in the AI revolution, my question for you is, can these companies, can they stand up to what might well be huge, massive lawsuits that are coming through?
News Corp put together an agreement where they will receive compensation for the use of, I believe it's Wall Street Journal information.
But what role? For the sustainability of these companies, right? These lawsuits can be a real hindrance. Talk to us about some of these risks to the actual entity, to the companies themselves.
Regulation is a big risk. I think you need to distinguish private companies versus public companies. I think public companies that need to monetize their business models on a recurring revenue basis and use more data in the cloud, like I just discussed, need to have a very solid business model. And that means a lot of cybersecurity, a lot of protection, not only of your own data, but those of your clients, but also protection in terms of the quality of the data that goes into these models. Like, that's paramount to having a really solid business model. So when I talk about cybersecurity, this is in many forms. It's not just data protection in the traditional sense, but improving the security stack. When it comes to IP, I think there are good examples of companies that have royalty-free photos, for example, like Adobe Firefly, etc. You need to figure out a business model where you can have a monetization, a strong recurring revenue. That is not going to be you have to take that into account, right?
Well, Anjali, let me take a step further, right? Because you're senior client PM at Pictet Asset Management for thematic equities. So what other themes are clients coming to Pictet about right now? Is it all AI? Is there anything else that people are looking at? Talk to us there.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. It's not all AI. I think AI is really a nice
big
early
one.
stage. It's the big one, etc. But around, there's lots of existing business models. So AI has already been around for more than 50 years. I think the business models that we see ongoing, profitable, it can vary from software to hardware to all sorts of different business models in the non-AI space. But the growth rate are really coming from these investments of innovation and digitalization.
I feel like I'm at a confab for Harvard Business Review. Here's the reality on the street. A lot of people are saying this is not a bubble. They're giving it credit for what it is, but there's a point out there where you have proof of concept. Yeah. When do we get proof of concept on AI to mere mortals like Lisa Mateo?
So there are loads of proof of concept on the AI side. I'll give you one. Amazon today, they announced this earlier this year. It takes them 6 minutes from the moment you put in your order on Amazon Prime, and it's ready to be boxed and delivered and sent out of the warehouse. That's different AI models that exist already today.
What about Google search? Why do I need more than what I get now on Google search?
Well, it's two different concepts, right? I think search is monetizing online advertising, obviously through AI. This is like 4 billion active users, more than 9 trillion searches a year, all generating revenue today, which is online advertising. When you use Gemini or any form of large language model, it's a different service that you're using.
Can we turn it off in your world? I think, Angela, this is so important. In your world, when you put AI out to the public, can they say yes or no, or do they just have to take it?
They say yes, but they see the benefits already. And I think it's more about these monetized, existing examples that we have today, including some Gen AI products in the cybersecurity space. There's a talent shortage.
Where are you on this, all wise one?
I'm waiting for SpaceX IPO. Let me tell you, SpaceX, what's the market cap they're projecting there? $200 billion for SpaceX? You talk to me about, all of that. If you're getting into technology and you're getting into the new wave and robotics and all this stuff, where does space fall into? People playing that trade, what about that theme?
So we don't play it yet. I think there's lots of technologies behind that we play that's super interesting and super important. I think these big themes, very often you need to find a really important business case. And at the moment, I think that the idea is great, the investments are great, but it's not listed companies that we can invest in for the moment. At some stage, the same way you have all these 13 or 14 kind of unicorns in the kind of large language model space, I think you need to see how they're going to be monetized over time, whether it's an IPO or a merger.
It's wonderful to have in the studio.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're supposed to say, oh, please come to Geneva.
Please come to Geneva.
There we go.
Please.
That's what we like. From Geneva, Switzerland with Pictet.
Love Geneva.
Joining us today, Angela Bastiampili. They're on AI. And, you hear my skepticism, folks. And, she's like...
I'm super bullish.
She's like, Tom, you just need some love for AI. Stephen Stills on a holiday weekend. Love them like the rest.
And you don't remember who you're talking to. Concentration slip away because your baby is so far away. Well, eagle fly with the dove. And if you can't be with the one you love, honey, love the one you're with. Love the one you're with. Love the one you're with. Love the one you're with.
This is Bloomberg Surveillance with Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney.
Are these stocks under-owned by institutional Wall Street?
A lot of these companies talking about generative AI.
With Lisa Mateo on markets.
Investors just worried about the ongoing sales slump in China.
And Michael Barr with news.
A ship traveling through the southern Red Sea has been attacked.
The best in economics, finance, investment, and international relations. This is Bloomberg Surveillance on Bloomberg Radio.
Good morning, everyone. Tom Keene, Damian Sassower in for Sweeney. Paul Sweeney, you know, the New Jersey trains are having a problem.
Yeah, they are.
Just said, I just think I'll stay on the beach. Thank you for coming in. You go direct. You look it. You look like you're direct.
Well tanned, yeah. Look,
9 o'clock Wall Street time. What do you do?
I'm a little jealous, of Paul Sweeney. He is definitely on a beach somewhere. I'm thinking LBI. I'm thinking, somewhere down south. But I mean, look, I have an affinity for getting out to the golf course this afternoon, and I plan on hitting it well, long and straight.
You do
Stay out of the traps.
9 holes like you just force.
Got to stay out of the traps, Tom.
You just go. You just go. You take the whole thing yourself.
I like to carry my own bag. Yeah.
Carry your own bag.
I don't trust anybody.
How much is
Steal
a
my
caddy?
clubs.
How much is a caddy now? 18 holes.
I don't want to answer that question because my wife is listening probably. But
I used to caddy 2 bags, and sometimes I do 36.
How much a loop did you used to get?
It was $5, and then big money was $7 or $8.
It's $100
I came
a loop.
home with tips. I'd come home with $40-50, and I was living large.
Easily $100 a loop for 18. Easy, probably 120. If he does a good job and he knows how to.
2 bags at once.
Two bags at once, and if you were really broke, and it was an okay day, it wasn't 80 degrees. This is Oak Hill Country Club in Country Club of Rochester. Okay. You do 36 holes. Wow.
Not a problem.
And you come home with 40-50
Your back is barking.
Tips. Yeah. Oh, you're exhausted. It was killing. Yeah. You don't do the cart.
I don't. I like to walk it. I like it's a good workout. I mean, you ask if golf's a workout. Golf's a workout.
There you go.
You walk it out. You get your steps in. You probably do 6.5 miles.
I can see Lisa out there. Golf talk on a Friday morning.
Yeah.
Good morning. It's Bloomberg Surveillance. And we're brought to you by BNY Mellon's Insight. Let me spell it. Insight, Nisite. More than 100 dynamic sessions. Countless opportunities to expand your knowledge, your network, your growth. June 4th through 6th in Nashville. Register at insight.bnymellon.com. Let me spell that again. Insight, Insite. Insight.bnymellon.com. Futures up 18. Dow futures up 79. How about a Bloomberg Business Flash? Lisa Mateo.
You got it. We have futures advancing after a Thursday sell-off, and this was despite that more than 9% surge in NVIDIA. NVIDIA right now shares up nearly 1%. So we have NASDAQ futures, S&P futures up 0.3%, Dow futures up 0.1% at 39,226. Traders really pushing back those expectations of interest rate cuts by the Fed to later in 2024. We had strong U.S. economic data yesterday. Atlanta Fed President Raphael Bostic, he said the central bank needs to be patient on its next move. And today, we're going to hear from the likes of the Fed's Christopher Waller. To the bond market, the 2-year yield 4.95%. That's up 2 basis points. The yield on the 10-year 4.49%, and that's up 1 basis point. Who's making news? It's Alphabet and Meta Platforms. They've reportedly been talking to the major film studios about licensing content for use with artificial intelligence video generation software. We have Alphabet and Meta. They're both up about 0.5%. And sources say Elon Musk SpaceX planning to sell shares of its valuation of about $200 billion. And finally, the consumer space. Discount retailer Ross Stores up 7%. The company boosted its EPS forecast for the year. That is your Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Damian.
Lisa Mateo, thank you so much. This is interesting, and it's very, very timely here. Margaret Brennan is such a hitter on Face the Nation. Look for it on the CBS television network Sunday morning. I think she got the CBS Gulf Stream for this weekend from Gail King. Gail had it slotted in, but Brennan had a Washington tantrum, as she's known to do. And I think she got the Gulf Stream after her conversation with our Secretary of Transportation. Joining us now with Face the Nation CBS, hear it on Bloomberg Radio, I should say, Sunday afternoon, Margaret Brennan. I can't fathom a conversation with the Secretary of Transportation. Now, Margaret, where do you begin?
Well, he's obviously preparing for, I feel like every Memorial Day weekend we say it's record travel. I mean, for all the economic angst that we hear consumers are feeling, it's not stopping them from filling up their gas tank or buying plane tickets. We're going to talk to him about all of that and the kind of delays you're going to face, because there's this shortfall of about 3,000 air traffic controllers, and now they're being forced to hire them. What's holding that up? We'll talk to him about a number of things, including this latest news from Boeing that the FAA administrator says they got a long road ahead of them.
I would say we're on the cusp of a trust breakdown, starting with the aircraft controllers. And, there's
on the cusp.
Like we're here. And what's the immediate, they finally got a new head of FAA and all that, but across the broad Bloomberg surveillance world, Margaret Brennan, there's what are we waiting for? Let's go. With the Secretary of Transportation, what do you say? What is any politician waiting for on the safety of our airways.
Well, we want to press him on whether this safety report, I guess Boeing put out today, is sufficient. You know, what did he learn from it? What does it actually mean when the FAA administrators say they have a long road ahead after saying, you know, back in February there were systemic issues? I mean, that's how many airlines fly these planes. This is a big problem. And is this just public messaging, or is this, you know, actual regulatory oversight in real time? So we'll talk to him about that, but also just on the basics, the arteries, the hiring people to work in these airports.
Margaret Brennan with us with CBS. Let me bring in our colleague, Damian Sassower.
So Margaret, you know, Palm is focused on the safety of travelers, and that's the airline's problem. I want to know about the safety of my golf bags when I'm traveling on Memorial Day weekend. You know, I saw that viral with Delta. They were throwing the team's golf bags all over the tarmac. It was unbelievable. Talk to us about the airports. You know, how important is it for these airports to function properly, and what is Pete Buttigieg going to do about it?
First question.
God only knows what he's going to do about your golf bag. But, I mean, in terms of the luggage and the like, I mean, we're seeing in these labor surveys and the like exhaustion from airline employees and being overscheduled, overtaxed. Is that leading to some of these issues? Well, we'll talk to him. I'm more concerned about whether my plane's going down or not.
No, serious stuff. Margaret Brennan, let us migrate in Segui here to the fact it is Memorial Day. There are benchmarks to a presidential election. How does the Biden administration, how do they in their campaign recalibrate over Memorial Day weekend?
Well, gosh, it's going to be ugly, Tom. It already is ugly. We have a lot of campaigning already. You got the South Bronx and Donald Trump up there. Not a normal campaign stop. Nothing normal about this election. And we know that June is about to start, along with a very key decision from the Supreme Court in the United States that could have a big impact on the election, answering that question of whether a presidential candidate or a president himself can face criminal prosecution for crimes committed. That's at the heart of whether we see prosecution for 2020 and January 6th. We're going to talk about election integrity on the program as well, with a number of key voices. And we're going to bring it back to the meaning of Memorial Day. I've got two lawmakers who served in uniform coming together to talk about what they're doing to try to help U.S. service people. I went early morning yesterday with them to go watch the Vietnam War Memorial.
Margaret Brennan, thank you so much. Of course, the CBS television network, Face the Nation. Look for that Sunday morning. Listen to Face the Nation on Bloomberg Radio, 2 p.m. in New York, Washington, D.C., and Bloomberg 106.1, Boston and Newburyport. With our news in New York City, here's Michael Barr.
Thank you very much, Tom, Damian, Lisa. The summer travel season is kicking off with airlines balancing consumer demand with ongoing fleet challenges. A Bloomberg analysis found U.S. airlines are adding seats at the slowest pace since the pandemic. Elaine Becker with TD Cowen says expect long lines and allow for the weather.
And I say this every summer because of thunderstorms and because you never really know when they're going to pop up. If you can take the earliest flight of the day, that is your best bet.
Elaine Becker with TD Cowen expects travel demand to remain strong for the entire summer. More than 100 people are believed to be dead in Papua New Guinea after a landslide in a remote region. One witness said that homes were buried by the landslide with people still sleeping inside them. The U.S. Supreme Court made it harder to prove racial discrimination in electoral maps. In a 6-3 vote, the court backed South Carolina Republicans who moved out 30,000 black residents when they redrew a congressional district. South Carolina argued that partisan politics, not race, and a population boom in coastal areas explain the map. Loyola Law School professor Jessica Levinson.
Justice Alito began the majority opinion by saying, remember, partisan gerrymandering, which is where you draw district lines to maintain or increase power based on partisan considerations, that's fine. And the Supreme Court a number of years ago said, in fact, federal courts have no role to play when it comes to partisan gerrymandering.
The fight centered on the boundaries drawn in 2022 by the legislature for one of South Carolina's 7 House districts. Vice President Kamala Harris is gaining voters' trust in key swing states for President Biden. According to a Bloomberg News Morning Consult poll, nearly half of swing state voters, 48%, say they trust Harris to fulfill their duties of the presidency if Biden were no longer able to serve. The Bloomberg survey was conducted in early May. Global news 24 hours a day and whenever you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Michael Barr, and this is Bloomberg Tom, Damian, Lisa.
The weekend starts strong, even if you don't like baseball. Yankees, Padres tonight, Carlos Rodon and Yu Darvish, both of them are on fire. And I'm sorry, to start the Memorial Day weekend out in San Diego, Yankees, Padres is just a great game of baseball.
Looking at the early returns of the Juan Soto trade.
That's right.
That's going to be interesting, yeah.
Juan Soto comes back to San Diego. They're going to fall apart over that.
And then Sunday.
Oh, here we go.
Pray tell, what happened Sunday?
My, you know, I'm just going to be a hog in the hay, man, on Sunday. If you're an auto racing fan, folks, you know what I'm talking about. It starts out with the Grand Prix of Monaco in the morning. And then later on, we go to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the greatest spectacle in racing, the Indy 500. And then 5 o'clock, we go to the Charlotte Motor Speedway for NASCAR's Coca-Cola 600. My son is now in Charlotte, and he looked at me.
Ready to see this?
I'm sorry?
He's in Charlotte right now.
He's in Charlotte right now, and he gave me that speech. Is like,
So you got the surveillance golf stream. You're going out to Indianapolis.
I wish I could. I've got the famous couch seat that's in front of the bar television set,
right?
And a 6-pack. And the cat.
Oh, really? A 6-pack?
That's an all-day thing.
That's
right?
yes.
That's a lot of...
Well, but this
it's an all-day thing.
But this goes back to what Paul Sweeney talks about. Damien, help me here. I'm sorry. Yankees, Padres. This is like playoff ball with these two pitchers in May.
Yeah. It is. And it speaks about the interleague rivalries, too. I mean, this is going to be all fun and games, but I think, again, it's the starting pitching for the Yankees, which has been the big surprise this season. So long as it holds up, I think the stat is so long as a New York Yankees pitcher lasts at least 5 innings, they've got some ridiculous records. So we'll see if they can last against that Padres lineup.
I looked at the batting averages of the two teams, the slugging percentages. There's no like Minnie Minoso. I mean, everybody's in the game. Anyways, thank you for that Indianapolis 500 update, Michael Barr.
Did you hear the excitement in my everything?
I missed it.
Complete report.
What do you think he was going to talk about the French Open?
Michael Barr, very good. Futures, we could talk about Nadal. Futures up 15, Dow futures up 64. The VIX 12.59 right now. I do want to point out the 10-year real yield out to 2.17. That's germane. We've had a lift in the real interest rate in the last few days. From New York, Bloomberg Surveillance.
markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day on Bloomberg Radio, Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Business app. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio, I'm Lisa Mateo. We've got green on the screen after the S&P 500 fell the most this month. Right now we have NASDAQ futures, S&P futures up 0.2%, Dow futures up 0.1% at 39,217. The two-year yield, 4.95%. That's up a basis point. The yield on the 10-year, 4.49%, and that's up a basis point as well. The crypto industry closer to another landmark after the SEC just paved the way for the eventual launch of the first U.S. ETFs, investing directly in the Ether token. Right now we have Ethereum at 3,713, Bitcoin above 67,000. To software, Workday down 10%. It cut its full-year subscription revenue forecast. The company also reported first quarter results, which analysts said were mixed. And speaking of work, Citi ordering more than 600 of its U.S. staffers back to the office 5 days a week. And finally, EV maker Lucid, they're going to eliminate about 400 jobs in the coming months. That's due to slowing demand for the cars. That is your Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Damian.
Lisa, thank you so much. Greatly appreciate it. Damian, where are you in this EV thing? You think it's here?
I don't really.
You mentioned the charging station.
I don't believe in it. I mean, look, for now. I mean, I know I believe in it. Don't get me wrong. I know that, from that perspective, I just think it's very difficult. I hear about these batteries going out. All of a sudden, your car is dead in somewhere. You know, you have to call it. I've heard some horror stories. So for me, I prefer the gas guzzlers.
Lisa, you've mentioned the charging stations. There's coming.
They're starting because you need more of them, and that's
way
the whole
more,
thing.
Way more,
you
not
need
more. We need
ton
way
more of them. But I'm still not on the
Takes too
bandwagon
long.
yet. Yeah, okay. I might do a hybrid.
Skylar Montgomery Koning, she called me up. She said, I want to be on. And I said, send me your note. And I'm like, whatever. TS Lombard. And they do brilliant work. She's director of macro strategy there. And they're in the middle of a research note. I don't know how many pages it is, 15, 16 pages.
Wow.
Is the absolute single best chart of the month. Skylar Montgomery Koning joins us right now, macro strategy, TS Lombard. Skylar, you got a scattered out chart which compares the GDP of different nations and their economic surprise index. And basically it underscores how the U.S. exceptionalism is all alone with massive GDP, but even sterling, with the election being called, is coming on as well. What does that chart look like in a year? What is a scattered out chart of our expectations versus actual GDP look like in 12 months?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting, right? Because that chart tells you two things. It tells you that the U.S. is outperforming on an absolute basis. And I expect in a year's time that you still have that outperformance, because if you think about what the two global growth engines of the world are, they're the U.S. and China. China's stimulating, but it's not the kind of stimulus that you did before. And it's not the kind of stimulus that's going to be able to make countries like Europe and the U.K. compete with the U.S. So in a year's time, I think you still have U.S. exceptionalism. But right now, the story is very interesting because you're having convergence because of growth surprises, because we've had these massive upside surprises in U.S. growth. Consensus has chased that upside surprise.
Right.
And so we're now getting downside surprises.
Well, we're getting downside surprises, so they say, but I'm looking at Atlanta GDP now, or I look at domestic final sales, and these are actually pretty good numbers. When does the party end?
Well, this is what's really interesting is we're getting downside surprises, but we actually care where the surprises are coming from as well. So if you look at Bloomberg's Economic Surprise Index, it very handily gives you all of the components. And what's surprising to the downside is sentiment. And I think that's largely related to the level of inflation, as well as being a pretty politically charged year. And so I'm not as worried about the growth outlook. If it's sentiment, that's the reason we're surprising to the downside.
Skylar, I'd love to hear your thoughts here on King Dollar. I mean, you mentioned back at mid-month that the dollar was vulnerable over the short term. Do you still feel that way? I mean, how quickly do those views on the dollar change, and where are we headed from here?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, for the dollar, in the short term, I'm still a bit cautious. We're seeing more growth convergence with global growth kind of catching up to U.S. growth. At the same time, the Fed has had an asymmetric reaction function where, because we know they don't want to hike, the market is looking for a reason to be dovish. At the same time, positioning, it's come off a bit, but it's still stretched along the dollar. However, I am more positive in the medium term. Growth is converging, but as I said, U.S. growth is still outperforming on an absolute basis. And the key point is that we still need to price policy divergence. Yes, the market is looking for the ECB to cut before the Fed, but over the next year and over the next 5 years, policy pricing is pretty identical. So I think you need to price in more dovishness in Europe and especially the UK, and that should be supportive for the dollar.
So where do you think euro dollar heads from here? I mean, do you have a target there?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think 105 is kind of the next point you're looking for on the downside. People are talking about parity because you get these massive policy divergence. I don't think we're quite there because the divergence is limited by the fact that the Fed does want to cut at some point.
And so you're talking about yield differentials here, right? And I believe you're absolutely right, spot on, that they have been a huge, huge driver of currency movement. We can see that just the high carry currencies versus the low carry, But, talk to me a little bit about dollar yen here. Something's going on there. Tom's talking about it all week long.
Something's
BOJ
going on there. They're going
intervention.
to intervene. You're going to be over the barbecue. Skylar's going to be, gaming out the British election returns.
That's right.
And you're going to have a massive intervention the third time here. Euro yen right now, Damian, 170.47. Wow.
Skylar, I don't want Tom to quote euro yen anymore. He's going to start quoting peso yen for us. Talk to us a little bit about the yen here. Is it still a funding currency? And what other funding currencies sort of stand out to you in this environment?
I mean, it's absolutely still a funding currency. For carry trades to work well, you need three things. You need a significant interest rate differential, which you have with the yen. You need low volatility because you don't want to lose your shirt if you're only gaining 5% in income. And you need positive risk sentiment. And so it's certainly being used as a funding currency. And what you see over and over again is that unilateral intervention does not work. So while they may be intervening, it's just kind of stopping the bleeding rather than creating a reversal. For a reversal, you need Fed cuts.
So to both of you, Damian, pick it. This is important, folks. Pick it up here within the trilemma. If you're going to have a unilateral intervention, which never works, I agree with Skylar on that. Damian, what works? And the only thing that works is interest rates. The central bank has to allow 10 and 30-year to go up much higher than 1%.
When I look at my FX models, Tom, it's certainly real yield differentials that have done the heavy lifting, at least over the better part of the last 1, 2, 3 year period in terms of currencies. But Skylar, take me through that. What are you looking at here, as we push into the summer slowdown? I mean, what's going to drive currency performance?
Well, this is the thing. I think it's going to be a summer slowdown. It's going to be low volatility continued. We're having the push out of the cuts from the Fed. And so that means it's a continued carry environment. And so carry can be quite positive still.
I look, Skylar, at the summation of all this, and I can slip in one more question here. The election suddenly in your United Kingdom, is it really called just because everyone thinks this is good as it gets for the British economy?
I mean, I'm not sure I have a huge commentary on why it was called. I think from a market's perspective, it doesn't really matter. And I see two reasons for why it doesn't matter. The first is that Labor has been in the lead by a significant margin for a very long time. Markets are good at pricing risk. And so if there was anything to price, it would be priced already. And the second is there's such limited fiscal space in the UK. We've all kind of been scarred by what happened with Liz Truss, and neither party really wants to play with that fiscal space. And so there's not a lot of change that can be made that can affect the economy and in turn markets.
That's great. You really steered around that for your general counsel. Skylar Montgomery Koning there on Liz Truss is the chief political correspondent for TS Lombard. Skylar, I hope I didn't get you into trouble. Thank you so much this morning. The scatter dot chart she has screams the American exceptionalism, like what we witnessed this week with NVIDIA.
Yeah, but I found her comments on carriers so spot on. I mean, Tom, the GSAM FX carry index is up 7.2% year to date. It's by far the best of 21 strategies that GSAM, those kind of niche strategies we talk about. I mean, it's just a carry. It carry me home.
How does that end? When does it end?
When vol picks up, right? We're going to have to see. I mean, and here's another anomaly, right? You have EM currency volatility trading below that of G10 currency vol. You just never really see these things. They can't last for very long. I expect that to snap back.
Damian Sassower with us. Paul Sweeney scheduled, I believe, next week. We will see him as well. I mean, I don't have a life. But renminbi, 7.24. Yuan
not moving.
Backs up a little bit, but we'll have to watch that. And frankly, the cross rates there are far more interesting versus Australia, versus Japan.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Some of the critical EM relationships as well. Only with Damian do we quote this so we can keep him for 30 more minutes in front of his tea time. Mexican peso plunges. It's weaker, 16.73. How many big figure moves do I get in peso here?
Well, I'm looking at peso yen. I mean, that has been the macro trade du jour.
Peso yen?
Yeah, 9.39. That is the trade.
Is it MXN JPY or JPY
MXN JPY.
I did not know that.
Yes, that's what it is.
Every time Damian's on, I learn. It's Bloomberg Surveillance. Good morning.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day on Bloomberg Radio, Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Business app. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
From the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio, I'm Lisa Mateo alongside Tom Keene and Damian Sassower with your opening bell report. So strong U.S. economic data really took a toll on the markets in Thursday trading this morning. The latest reading on April durable goods orders, well, that came in better than economists were looking for, rising 0.7%. We're also waiting on a read on sentiment. That comes out in about a half hour. But right now, let's see how the markets kick things off to end the trading week. We'll start with the S&P 500, up 0.3%. That's 16 points, 5,283. Over to the Dow, that is little changed, up 39 points at 39,100. And the NASDAQ up 0.3%, up 48 points at 16,788. As far as the bond market, the 2-year yield 4.94%. That's up 1 basis point. The 10-year yield at 4.49%, and that's up 1 basis point. Quick check of commodities. We have spot gold higher, $2,345 an ounce. Brent crude, $81.66 a barrel. WTI crude, $77.36 a barrel. At the bell, we're checking in with Eli Lilly. Their shares down 0.3%, but the company's saying it's going to invest $5.3 billion to boost production of a key ingredient in its diabetes and weight loss shots. That is your Bloomberg opening bell report. Tom and Damian.
Lisa Mateo, thanks so much. Damian Sassower in right now for Paul Sweeney as well. We welcome all of you here on a big Friday, getting ready for the holidays as well. There's some headlines out right now, and this is on Israel and on Rafah. This is down at the south end of Gaza. On a sleepy Friday here, there's still a horrific war going on and a huge international debate over this. The headline from the UN court, the United Nations court orders Israel to stop military operations in Rafah. And Damian, this really comes home in that, there's different parts of the world, and yet over there, things still completely fall apart.
Yeah, but the UN has a bad look over it as well, given they were, in many circles, accused of being somewhat responsible for the initial attack on October the 7th. So, but again, this is the International Court of Justice. This is the UN, and this is unprecedented. It's
unprecedented, and of course, we saw that with the ICC earlier this week. We'll look for a response from Israel. Please stay with us and to our good reporting team in Tel Aviv as well. Another headline out just seconds ago, the United Nations Court has no power to enforce this ruling on Israel. Let me read that to you again. UN court orders Israel to stop military operations in Rafah. Right now, with the markets open, the Dow up 73 points. I guess I should quote gold. That would be a good way to start with Axel Merk, 2,369. Axel Merk, there were gold bugs and silverites, William McKinley and William Jennings Bryan. And then in the 70s, when I had wider lapels, there were gold bugs. Where are the gold bugs now? Is it just about central banking buying, or is there a retail enthusiasm for gold?
Yeah, good morning. I thought the golf talk was the interview of the day, but let's talk gold here. Until just recently, it appeared that the U.S. retail investor was absent, at least on the exchange traded products. They've been buying physical gold, but not so much on the ETFs. Most of the Chinese retail buyers, and obviously the Chinese central bank as well and the like, have been buying. Of late, that might have changed. I say might because a week or so doesn't make a trend yet. But yes, much of the gold rally has happened without broad retail participation in the U.S.
What does that signal to you?
That's an excellent question. I mean, if you are a gold bug, then it means there's a lot of upside potential when those folks finally come in. If you are on the bearish side, you can say, well, it's been lukewarm. It's only the Chinese that have been buying. At some point, the Chinese central bank will stop buying. And by the way, the Fed is going to be more hawkish and so forth. So with any of these things, gold is this one asset that you're always glad you had, but never quite know why you want to have it for tomorrow. And so people put different spins on these stories. As I think you're aware, I've been a gold investor for many years. and through the ups and downs. And it's but the psychology of gold investing is a completely different story.
I look at gold back 20 years. You can do this on the Bloomberg, folks. I'm doing this semi-log where percentage change matters. And, there was a quietude to gold from 2012-ish on over. It actually went down some. But it's amazing on a log chart, Damian Sassower, gold with this leg up to 2346 back 20 years is a legitimate trend and really isn't extended. I didn't know that.
Well, for me, it's really what does drive gold. And Axel, my question for you is, I've always been taught that real yields are probably the best driver of the price of gold. But, is it indeed supply and demand at this point? I mean, is it really central bank buying, this asymmetric sort of return profile for gold that, hey, now that these central banks own it, they're not going to be selling it. And, the price only has up to go from here. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Well, the price, it's always supply and demand with any asset. Yes, the real yield is what we have been quote unquote taught. But the one thing about gold is correlations aren't stable. Whenever you think that you find a correlation, it starts to break down. Take a correlation to equities. The correlation to equities in the long run is zero, but it doesn't mean it's never correlated. It sometimes goes with the S&P and sometimes against the S&P. Always just enough to frustrate people. But indeed, it has decoupled, so to speak, from real yields. And most of what we look at is longer term real yields, like a 7 or 10 year. But those have broken down as well. Now, keep in mind that there are plenty of reasons to be a gold bug. I mean, it's you just mentioned some sad geopolitics. I happen to think that what we see in Gaza, also in Ukraine, are just symptoms of a new era. And similarly, of course, the Chinese, they know that the dollar is being used more as a financial weapon. So all these things, if you want to be the glass half full guy, that is it. But at the same time, right, in the short run, anything can happen. Gold has had a fantastic run.
Well, Axel, talk to us about the broader precious metals complex. I mean, are there opportunities for silver here, for platinum, palladium?
Well, the silver folks have finally a day to celebrate. I mean, it's the silver for a long period lagged the price of gold, and silver seems to have broken out from that a little bit. I'm a simpleton. I focus on gold because it doesn't. I call it the purest indicator of the mania of policymakers at the Fed and other central banks around the world. The moment you go to other metals, it's industrial dynamics that play a much bigger role. And it may be in part that manufacturing PMIs around the world are picking up, suggesting that on the manufacturing side, we are not entering a recession. And that's why silver has been doing better, because silver doesn't do so well in a recession usually.
In the time we've got left with you, you've done a lot of work on dollar. And of course, the shock here has been strong dollar. Reaffirm the case that the dollar could fall apart.
Well, we're talking on a Friday, so I might as well speculate. I just mentioned the manufacturing PMIs. The rest of the world is more manufacturing heavy than the U.S. They are strong, so the rest of the world, maybe the central banks won't be easing quite as much, will be more hawkish. We don't see that. That's speculation. In the U.S., we're more services driven. The low-end consumer is weakening. The interest rate hikes are taking a bite very slowly, so they're not biting really at the high-end consumer in part of because of the equity rally. And so maybe the U.S. is going to be more dovish, especially with Powell's bias. And on a day like today, that story makes sense, but I think that's pure speculation.
No one's listening. 12 months from now, where's gold, Axel? Got to run. Where's gold in 12 months?
Well, we have a new administration. And last time that Trump was elected, should he get elected again, and you talked about the gold bugs earlier, all the problems were solved. And then suddenly there was no interest in gold anymore until late in the administration. And obviously it's usually not just who is in office, but the underlying drivers. But the storyline may well change early next year.
Axel Merk, thank you so much on gold. He's with Merk Investments. The Dow up 120 points. With our news in New York City, Michael Barr.
Thank you very much, Tom, Damian, Lisa. And this just in, the top United Nations court ordered Israel to immediately halt its military operations in the southern Gaza city of Rafah. While Israel is unlikely to comply with any such order, it will ratchet up the pressure on the increasingly isolated country. It's the unofficial start to summer, Both the roads and airport runways are getting busy ahead of the long Memorial Day weekend. At Philadelphia International Airport, Public Affairs Manager Heather Redfern says they anticipate a high number of travelers passing through. Redfern says they had the TSA lines ready with many transportation security agents to speed up the screening process.
Security lines have been busy all day long, but they're moving. The TSA is getting people through at PHL.
Airport officials are predicting nearly 30% more air travelers will take off this long holiday weekend compared to last year. The White House has responded to Senate Republicans who blocked the bipartisan border security bill. Bloomberg's Amy Morris reports from Washington.
In a written statement, President Biden said if Republicans cared about securing the border, they would have voted for the bill. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer after the vote.
I understand that bill was not going to win every Democratic vote or every single Republican vote. That's what bipartisanship is. It's a compromise.
6 Democrats joined Republicans in blocking the measure, including California Senator Alex Padilla.
It includes arbitrary border closures and could practically eliminate the right to seek asylum for people fleeing for their safety.
And even if it had passed the Senate, Republican leaders have made it clear the bill would have been dead on arrival in the House. In Washington, Amy Morris, Bloomberg Radio.
Vice President Kamala Harris is increasingly impressing voters' trust in swing states. According to a Bloomberg News Morning Consult poll, nearly half of swing state voters, 48%, say they trust Harris to fulfill the duties of the presidency if President Biden were no longer able to serve. Global news 24 hours a day and whenever you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Michael Barr, and this is Bloomberg. Tom, Damian, Lisa.
What's the event after the Masters? What's the event after the PGA? After the PGA, it is Fort Worth. It is Colonial. It's a really interesting tournament because it's a short course. Colonial is an ancient course out there. And Scotty Scheffler has to go down there, I think, a little distracted, to say the least. I think he's, opening rounds, he's playing sort of a mediocre. Maybe he'll turn it on here or not. Give us an update, Damian, on what we witnessed in Louisville. How does he carry forward with, these allegations going on? Can he just walk away from it?
Oh, he's a cult hero now, I think, Scheffler. But, it's really Schauffele is the story. He is playing lights out. And, to everyone's credit, Rory McIlroy, a lot of these guys, are playing as best they can, but they're really chasing, you're right, Scotty Scheffler. And, news that he drove away with a police officer on his hood is, it's not nothing, I guess, but he managed to stretch in the cell, I hear, and then come back and do pretty well that first day.
Well, I want to add to that because there's some news about that now with the Scheffler stuff, because there was no video the body cam from the police officer who said that he hung on to the car. And then there was another video that was released yesterday that contradicts what that police officer said.
Interesting.
So this gets murkier by the minute. So and they said the Scheffler legal team said, no, we're not going to settle. We're going to go through with this. So
that's sort of the update on it. And he's down in Fort Worth now trying to move a golf ball around.
So I'm wondering if that's going to give him some inspiration to play lights out.
Yeah.
We'll have to see. What we're going to do here, come forward, we're going to take advantage of tax-free bonds here over the next 15 minutes. This is something to listen to. We don't do enough on municipal bonds, and we're going to cover that here. Right now, since you've been carry on the brain this morning, what's the best carry right now? Where's the biggest interest rate differential?
So so I think what you have to talk about first is the funding currencies. Where do you feel comfortable funding? I still feel comfortable funding in a currency like the Japanese yen. And then, if you're looking for carry, I kind of hinted at it before. I prefer Mexico to Brazil. I think it's going to be Latin America, the double-digit high yielders, and Mexico seems to me like an economy on the rise. So I like peso yen.
We needed Sassower
up 100% in the last 10 years.
BlackRock, if you're listening here, Damian, you could do a set of carry ETFs. It'd be like Big Dog. It'd bring in billions.
I'm not a retail investor out of Japan, but a lot of households in Japan play those carry trades all day long.
Way more. From New York, Bloomberg Surveillance.
Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day on Bloomberg Radio, Bloomberg Television, and the Bloomberg Business app. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
The Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio, I'm Lisa Mateo. Stocks are advancing. We have the Nasdaq up 0.4%. Same life for the S&P 500. The Dow up 0.2% at 39,156. We'll take you over to the bond market. The 2-year yield 4.94%. That's little change, and the yield on the 10-year 4.49%, and that's up 1 basis point. Commodities, we have spot gold higher at $2,340 an ounce. Brent crude $81.68 a barrel. WTI crude $77.37 a barrel. Software company Workday down 10%. It cut its full-year subscription revenue forecast. The company also reported first quarter results, which analysts said were mixed. Then we have Intuit down 7%, raised its full-year revenue forecast, but it gave a forecast for adjusted fourth quarter earnings that was weaker than expected, and that's why those shares are lower. And to the consumer space, Ross Stores, they're getting a lift, up 8%. That's a discount retailer after the company boosted its EPS forecast for the year. That is your Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Damian.
Lisa Mateo, thank you so much. One of the great issues with the NVIDIA effect is those that get in early are retiring. Joe Mysick joins us now. He loaded the boat 3 years ago in NVIDIA, worked out, and he's announced his retirement.
Yeah, there you go.
The municipal bond market, without question, across this nation, the #1 journalist in the study of our municipal bonds, and he has announced his retirement here, although I can't imagine he'll ever retire from looking at munis. This could be a 3-hour conversation, Joe. Let me just start with the resiliency of munis. What were your thoughts as California fell apart years ago? California was a disaster.
Oh, yeah.
And you said, everybody calm down. Go back there.
Well, yeah, you're talking about the financial crisis, and they're talking about, California going away somehow. And, that was a period of about 2 years of hysteria.
But your hallmark is you don't do hysteria.
Right.
How did they clear that market, solve the problem as you predicted?
Oh, it's just municipalities, particularly states,
Right.
are almost like aircraft carriers going through the water, very, very solid. And people who go into who indulge in hysterics about short-term problems like budget deficits are tourists in Muniland.
Yeah, right.
Damian, jump in here. I got a million questions.
So I have a question. There is an $8 billion municipal bond price fixing claim that's out there against some of the big banks. Talk to us a little bit about, Tom mentions the fantastic performance by the asset class after decades and decades. Do you think that price fixing has anything to do with that? Is this something real here?
Oh, that's on the VRDO business. No. Municipalities, they are resilient, and you say the bond market, the municipal bond market, it's resilient because municipalities have taxing power, and they also, the serial bond is a great, wonderful part of their debt. Instead of, they don't face these, what they call the looming debt wall.
Yeah.
And in fact, that was one of the things that they mentioned during the hysteria of the financial crisis. What are municipalities going to do when the rollover occurs? There is no rollover in munis. Come on.
Joe, to the calmness that you have, and I know Damian wants to talk about college funding and all the bonds coming there. I want to talk about the Chicago Cubs, and that the Royals down in Kansas City tried to do a publicly financed stadium. That went down in flames with a vote. But in South Bend, Indiana, muni bonds are getting it done again. Are muni bonds going to be used to build every stadium dream we have coast to coast?
No. There are enough very wealthy owners who want to call the shots on their own. However, that South Bend issue shows how these stadiums can be financed with very interesting tax backing. And that's how, this particular deal was put together. Next week, actually, within a week or two, Spartanburg, South Carolina, selling bonds for another minor league stadium for the Spartanburgers.
Who buys it? I mean, Damian.
Well, here's what who's buying that? My question is, who's buying all this debt that the big public and private universities are issuing here? I mean, we have seen massive issuance on that part. And in lieu of what's going on in the world on some of these university campuses, talk to us about demand for that debt. It seems to be there.
Oh, absolutely. Because, the universities they're among the most transparent borrowers you can find in the muni market. You just look at the
enrollments, number of students.
You basically go to just a few parts of the official statement and say, which is the offering documents, the bonds. Is there demand? What's their acceptance ratio?
Yep.
Right? Do they accept 8% or do they accept 88%? All right, there you go. Do they have an endowment? A lot of these schools have very handsome endowments, and that it has to be a security feature for investors.
Where's the biggest risk right now? Where's the MISIC worry in the tax-free bond market?
What keeps me awake at night?
What keeps you awake? Chicago?
Nothing.
Give me
The election?
some
No, nothing. No. The muni right now, the muni space is remarkably solid because there's not, they receive so much money from the federal government.
I know you're going to go work for Mayor Adams. It hasn't been announced yet. But Joe MISIC on the congestion tax, the desperation to raise revenue, not just in New York City, but many other cities as well. John Tucker's asking, how's that congestion tax going to work out?
That's probably a very good thing. What do? You make driving into the city an abomination. And it's going to, lots of people will still drive in and they'll pay. And it's going to be a very solid support of cash for the MTA for years to come.
Joe, great. What are you going to do in retirement? Which borough?
Miami?
Miami?
Yeah, I'm around New Yorker, native New Yorker. What am I going to do?
You're the only one not leaving?
What am I going to do the first day of retirement? I think I'm going to go at 9 o'clock in the morning and have bacon and eggs.
Yeah. And property taxes in New York.
Joe MISIC, thank you so much. One of the brilliant hires of Matthew Winkler, I can say, over the years. He has been absolutely definitive and steadfast in his area, municipal bonds. The Dow up 20 points right now, SPX up. It's a fractional market. It looks like a Memorial Day market to me. Sassower and I noticing Euro yen. Are you ready?
Are you ready?
Euro yen.
Talk to me.
170.32. Dollar yen is out of 157. Come on.
Mex yen 106.62% return over the last 10 years.
From
4 years.
Michael Barr's Indianapolis 500. Everyone's recovering. And that's when you intervene.
Scheffler's in Colonial. Yankees are on playing the Pods. We got Rangers. I mean, by the way, we've been talking about New York sports, right, with the Knicks and the Rangers. Talk about Dallas sports. You got the Stars and the Mavericks. I mean, they're both in the conference finals. I mean, the sports situation in Dallas is heating up.
Right, good. And folks, for those of you, I saw it on YouTube, you're asking, yes, John Tucker's being medicated here after the comments of Joe MISIC on the congestion tax. It's great to have Joe MISIC in. And, the article here is just really wonderful. One of his final issuance. Cubs affiliate expands ballpark on minor league baseball rebound. And these are the issues. But, again, it's this lack of hysteria, which is the hallmark of Joe MISIC.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to be honest, you have a lack of hysteria and all this EM stuff. I didn't get a lot of 1998.
I'm feeling that complacency, too, in the market right now, aren't you? I mean, it's summer, the weather's beautiful, and, people are just like, we buy it. Buy it all, wave it in.
1 year on from the death of Tina Turner. She was amazing in the set of careers she had. It was all done. She was finished. It was just forget about it. Done. And there it was, one single song to resurrect Tina Turner. Have a good weekend.
Do what you want me to do. I'm your pride.